Sunday, the Civic Vibes social media platform. Today being the 3rd of April. Yes, how time runs, huh? Time flies indeed. 3rd of April already. It's a Sunday, a very bright and beautiful Sunday in Dominica. So wherever you are this time, be it on this blessed rock called Dominica, we call it the nature isle of the world, that is. Those of you in the region as well, we welcome you, or even if you're further afield, welcome and greetings. It's another very, very special program here this afternoon as we about to get things kicking here. We want to say a special welcomes and greetings to all of you, ready locked, ready live this afternoon with us. We thank you very, very much for your company. Paula Celestine is here this afternoon already in the flesh. And so in just a bit, I'll be moving over to her so that she can say a hi and hello to you as well up there in viewing and listening audience. Let me just ask those of you who are on the social media feed at this time, there is a little notification button when we go live each and every Sunday. We're asking you that if you can turn on that notification button so that whenever we go live, you will get that alert or you will get that reminder telling you that Civic Vibes is live. And so we'd appreciate you turn on that notification button. Also too, we ask that you share the live at this time because we would like other persons to be part and parcel of everything and anything that is happening here each and every Sunday. This afternoon promises to be yet another very interesting and informative program. So we just ask each and every one of you at this time, make yourself feel very, very comfortable because the program that you're about to be part of be a very interesting and informative one indeed. Without further ado, let me just move across to Paula Celestine here, co-host of Civic Vibes, so that she can give her opening salvo, as it were, Max, to you guys out there in the listening audience. Paula, a special good afternoon to you.
Yeah, good afternoon to you, Lofty, and how are you?
Doing pretty well, doing pretty well.
Okay, how has the week been for you?
Good.
Okay. I as well would like to say blessed Sunday afternoon to all our viewers by whatever social media they are listening to us this afternoon. I want to say greetings to each and everyone. And as usual, we're expecting to have a very important and interesting program here this afternoon. Should I go ahead and say good afternoon to our guest, Lofty?
Go right out.
Okay. I would like to say good afternoon to our guest. I'll leave the names a little bit Lofty. And I want to say deepest sympathy to the George family in Calibishi. Yesterday afternoon, we lost one of our very strong stalwart from Calibishi. Everyone knows him by the name of Masterman, Mr. George, Davis George. And yeah, so I would like to reach out to the family in Calibishi, grieving family at this time. I want to say in times like this, hold strong, be of very good courage, and God will take care. Thank you. Okay.
All right, indeed. Thank you very much, Paula. Thank you very much, Paula, for your opening remarks. And yes, we too here, as Paula said, from the Civic Vibes team, we will say, hi and hello to everyone locked in. Also heard of a drowning in Calibishi yesterday. Say, send our sympathies out to the grieving family at this time of this foreigner told. So yes, Dominicans, it's a special afternoon, as we said before. We're about to take flight in just a bit. This afternoon, it promises to be yet another very informative and interesting program. We are supposed to be having 3 parts to this discussion this afternoon. We'll be starting off with an event that will be taking place sometimes later down this week. We're having a representative here in just a while. We haven't seen her there as yet, but she should be here anytime shortly. That is Miss Lambert. She's representing the RBD as the PRO. There are 2 other organizations that have hooked up, basically doing a very good deed, very good action for and on behalf of country Dominica. So in just a while, we'll be hearing from Ms. Lambert in just a bit. Later on, when we are done and dusted with the conversation with Ms. Lambert, we will be talking, having the very good discussion, I must say, with Dr. Simone Matthew. Simone Matthew is no stranger to us, a daughter of Dominica. She's out there and continues to do very good work for and on behalf of the country. So we'll be having that conversation with Dr. Simone Matthew and also another no stranger, that is Alex Powell Bruno. We're having two guests in our midst this afternoon. I can promise you the discussion promises to be a lively one, an energetic one. And basically we'll be talking about all about collective action in the benefit of our country, Dominica. That is where the gist of the conversation will be centered around this afternoon with our two formidable guests in the name of Dr. Simone Matthew and Brother Alex Bruno, a community man at that. Later on in the program, when we are done with two guests, we'll be having an entrance of this Adelaide Paul. She'll be making an entrance here as well, right here on Civic Vibes. She too will be adding much value to the conversation ahead. Basically, we had a walk in Dominica that was initiated by Athi Mate and crew. Mr. Athi Mate, good afternoon to you, sir, to you and crew. And so Miss Adelaide Paul, she will be sometimes later in the program representing some Dominicans or all of Dominicans living in the diaspora. They too will be replicating that walk sometime, I believe, Saturday coming. So yes, it promises to be a very interesting conversation here as we move along. A very interesting program awaits us all. And so we're just going to take now a little musical break. You already see Miss Lambert is in the house with us. And so after the break, we'll be talking to Miss Lambert here this afternoon. Please stay tuned, Dominicans. Stay tuned. Dominicans, yes, indeed, it's about that time, as I said before, and we're going to get things cracking here this afternoon. We already have in our presence this afternoon as a guest on this afternoon's program, Miss Lambert and Nesty, but we'll just be calling her Miss Lambert for the purpose of this conversation. Miss Lambert, good afternoon to you, and how are you?
Good afternoon, Mr. Dura. I'm fine, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Good. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that is Miss Lambert Nesty. She's in the house with us. What we're gonna do now, just before we engage Miss Lambert, we're gonna play a short video clip so that that too forms part of Mrs. Lambert's presentation here this afternoon. So please take a listen and take a look at that short clip, that short video clip that Mrs. Lambert and her crew have prepared for you guys out there, and we'll be starting that conversation in just a bit. The clip should be coming up anytime soon. Yes, right.
nation, nous n'y une nation pour bâtir. Actuellement là, nous passons jamais si span. Nous besoin tout mettre toute tête, qui ou grand, qui ou petit. Obligatoire nous invoquer aux solutions. On meilleur Dominica, c'est ça nous commander. Pas laisser valer nous tomber. On petit pays, oh là, nous tous vivons à la paix. Depuis nous enfants, c'est comme ça été. Faut pas nous jamais oublier, mauvais temps nous expériencer. Quand yon nation glo marché, portez nous aller. Pas grâce bon Dieu nous sauver, si chemin la vie nous continuer. Quand nous avancer, faut nous changer. Préserver, 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 préserver l'amour. Yeah. Préserver, 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 préserver la foi. Aïe. Préserver, 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 préserver espoir. Yeah. Préserver, 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 préserver Dominica.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your patience. That was the short clip, the short video clip that I asked you to look at just before we introduce here this afternoon. Ask Ms. Lambert to introduce herself. Ms. Lambert, again, good afternoon to you and welcome again.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Ms. Lambert, in terms of just a brief introduction of yourself, I know some persons will be looking and listening out there and don't know who is Ms. Lambert. Can you just do that, in your own way, please? Thank you very much.
So my name is Binta Lambert Amnesty. In my current capacity, I am the Public Relations Officer of RBD Limited. That's the company that owns Hampstead Estate, which has been involved in a lot of controversy in recent times that sort of centered around keeping the river clean. In a nutshell, that's who I am. Some people may know me in a different context, but that's my context for today.
Yeah, and I know a number of persons already sent me messages telling me that they know you in other capacities. But as you said, we'll leave it at that for now.
Okay.
Yes. Ms. Lambert, in terms of the organizations that have partnered for that all-important event, can you just go through them and give us an idea why this all-important event, please?
So RBD Limited, that's the company I represent. That's family-owned company, Douglas family basically owned company, and was formed several years ago. And one of the assets that fall within the portfolio of the company is the Hampstead River. Nature Blends has also collaborated with us in this endeavor. The CEO of Nature Blends is Miss Lakia Joseph. She's a young lady who is from Benz. She's a youth ambassador. She's very much involved in community activities. And then our final, the three main organizers was Waitukubuli Advocates for Viable Environment, better known as WAVE. That's an advocacy group in Dominica, made up of Dominicans in Dominica and in the diaspora, who, as the name suggests, is about environmental protection. So very much falling within the ambit of what we're organizing. And this whole activity really came up because the company, as well as the community of Benz, wanted to come up with sort of long-term solutions to deal with what we saw as the emerging, but which has really been an ongoing litter problem with the Hampstead River. We felt that the company felt we needed to engage the community in coming up with solutions to the problem. And so I reached out to Lakia. Lakia was already herself trying to think of what she could do to help the situation. I reached out as well to the Benz Village Council chairperson, as well as to other groups within the other communities around Benz, who frequently, the people who live there frequently utilize the river or historically have always enjoyed the river. So we brainstormed and came up with this idea to have an anti-litter environmental protection campaign. And so here we are. The name of it is Just Bin It.
Just Bin It, you said.
Mm-hmm.
And what, well, based on the conversation we can well appreciate that tagline, just being it, but just give a little more detailed information as to why that tagline.
Okay. So what we really want to highlight is proper disposal of garbage. And so wherever you are in a recreational setting, instead of just indiscriminately throwing your garbage, you eat something, you have a wrapper or something to throw away, you try to identify a place that you can properly dispose of your garbage, which is likely in a bin. I lived in Dominica for probably most of my life. And so I know of the issues we have historically around. There's a bin there, but we don't put our garbage in the bin. We might put your garbage around the bin or near to the bin. Sometimes we don't care to even use the bin at all. So it's about proper disposal of garbage. And also broadly, we wanted to look at the whole context of environmental preservation, where we recognize it's not just garbage, the physical garbage that we see, like plastic, styrofoam, and those type of things that litter the environment. There's also pollutants that with what we use to plant. There's also chemicals. So we're talking about preserving water and making it healthy for the environment. So there's garbage. We want people to dispose of your garbage properly, enjoy what nature has to offer, but dispose of your garbage responsibly. And then we also want to look at it in the broader context of, we talk about garbage like, okay, a lot of times we don't see any connection between garbage and climate change that people are talking about. Sometimes we see it as a problem outside of Dominica, but what are we ourselves doing in Dominica that can be impacting climate change? So we wanted to educate and sensitize the public and really help people to develop those linkages in their minds. And our ultimate goal, obviously, is to change people's behavior, but I understand that that's like long-term. Changing behavior is a long-term goal, but we are committed to starting or continuing the process that others have started before us.
Well, I must say that is a very great initiative by you guys. A lot of times persons think of, as you said, climate change and problem thereof as being other people's problem and not our own. Think of ways that we ourselves are contributing to that kind of problem. So I must compliment you guys for coming together to on such an activity and awareness part of it. Just in case of, are there any or are you guys looking for public participation in that as well?
Well, most definitely. We want to reach out to as many people in Dominica and outside of Dominica as possible. The campaign is actually a 2-week event. It runs from April 3rd, which is today, to April 17th, which is Easter Sunday. I'm making a pitch for people to have an activity for their Easter Sunday already, just outside of the usual activities that we do back home. So we start off this Sunday with a lunch in the village of Benz, because that's the community where everything started, Benz Hampstead, so one community. So we're starting off with a launch of the campaign activities in Benz. Every Sunday we have an activity, so it's 3 Sundays. The 3rd, on the 10th, is a community cleanup day, where young people and villagers, community members from Benz, Ansdime, and Solda Kalibishi area will be doing a cleanup from Benz down to Hampstead, along Hampstead River. And it's our hope that other similar activities can be happening around other communities in Dominica at that same time. And then the 3rd Sunday, we have the close of the everything, where we hope that we can put out the whole outcome of everything, what any solutions that we have moving forward, what those would be. And then within the 2 weeks, so we have what I consider the real educational components of the campaign. We have put together content experts, I would consider them to be, from environmental health, Ministry of, Forestry, Division of Forestry, solid waste, and people from WAVE as well, who I consider to be environmental advocates, environmental enthusiasts, who are all going to come together on different days to do these radio programs, which will take the form of panel discussions. So on the 5th, we have a panel discussion on Kyrie FM. That's on Hot Topics. So that's a program that lots of people listen to. So we invite people to tune in. We have a second panel discussion on the 5th, on the 7th, that's on DBS. And then the week after that, we are back at Kyrie on the 12th, Hot Topics again. And then we end with a panel discussion on the 13th on TDN Media. So we invite, these are some, we did a lot to try to get people who could speak to the issues and really educate, not just different people calling in and giving their opinions, but really giving people something substantive that they could ponder on and go home and think about. So we would really like to have as many people tune in and participate in those panel discussions as possible.
Yes, well, Ms. Lambert, apart from the other media outlets that you mentioned here a while ago, let me on behalf of Paula Celestine here say a big thank you for at least considering and choosing Civic Vibes, the social media platform, for us being part of launching of that Bean It campaign, as it were.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for hosting us.
Yes, just before we close, I realize our time is short here, but Paula Celestine would just want to chime in here for a thought or two before we close.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
It's more or less a suggestion, Ms. Lambert. Yeah, it's more or less a suggestion. When you spoke about installing the bins, what really came to my mind as you spoke, one of the things that came to my mind, because sometimes the bins are placed there, and like you said, persons would put the stuff around the bin, they would put it close to the bin and all of that. Just a little suggestion that maybe you could all install an arrow or something. So at least the persons who that would be thinking of putting this very far away from the bin, maybe a little arrow saying, okay, the bin is over here. And instead of just putting it down, that would be a little more, observant to the persons who thinking of just maybe just throwing the trash all over. Just a little suggestion.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll take that on board.
Yes, indeed. That was Paula's suggestion. Thank you very much, Paula. So, Ms. Lambert, in terms of our wind-up comments here from you, what would you want to reinforce or concretize in the public's mind as you read that Bean It campaign?
Well, you know what? I would go back to the video that showed different clips of areas where we indiscriminately dispose of garbage in Dominica, and then ask ourselves, is this really the nature isle? I mean, we promote ourselves as Nature Island of the Caribbean. We would love to say Nature Island of the world. Well, that requires each individual person in Dominica to have a role in us being that nature isle. And so keeping Dominica clean should be almost number one on the agenda of every Dominican. It's not just to help the country in general, but it also helps you. Keeping Dominica clean affects your tourism product. It affects your marine life. So it affects the fisherman. It affects the bus driver. It affects the tour guide. It affects your hotelier, who in turn employs other people around you. So we want to see this as an all of Dominica problem that requires an all of Dominica approach. And we would just like to invite people to, sort of listen and take part in these events, and also that to continue, because sometimes we have a big hype about things and everybody's on board, and then it dies down and then people forget. That we want people to continue to always remember. And we will do our part in terms of make sure we have signage as much as is possible, billboards, things to keep people, they see it, they remember it constantly it's constantly in their consciousness. So hopefully we achieve change. It's the beginning. And so we invite everybody to come on board with us, and we hope to make the best of this.
Yes, indeed. Ms. Lambert, as I said before, I want to thank you very much. I want to congratulate you and your team, the number of persons, the number of organizations that came together. And I hope that sort of campaign-like atmosphere will continue with cleanliness of Dominica is concerned, right?
We can only hope.
Yes.
And try.
All right. Yes. Thank you very much for your time here this afternoon, and we wish you guys all the best.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Hi, Miss Celestine. Nice meeting you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay,
All
bye-bye.
right, folks. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. All right, folks, here's it. We just had Ms. Lambert in the house. She represented the RBD Limited out of Small PRO, and also Nature Blends been part of that cleanup campaign, and as well WAVE. You may be asking now, what is the acronym for WAVE? What does that mean? It means basically Whitey Kubuli Advocates for a Viable Environment in Dominica. Right about now, before we get into the next segment of our program here this afternoon, where we'll be speaking to Brother Alex Bruno and Dr. Simon Matthew, all about collective action, community action, and the works. Now have that short clip, that short video that some of you saw before. It's another time, if you haven't seen it, then it's another time to take a look at it as we wind down first segment of Ms. Lambert and her team on the Bean Up campaign. Be back shortly.
Yeah,
Jackie got the beats.
problems with the country. Peter, what one of them? Opera. Boy, could not yourself. Problem up in Hampstead. My famous crew. Problem up in Hampstead.
The Hampstead River
Problem up in Hampstead. Hampstead. Problem up in Hampstead. They're fighting for a river. Benz for a what? They're fighting for a river. Lucky our boy. They're fighting for a river. Emo. They're fighting for a river. True.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Tout le monde prend en position, nous n'y en nation pour bâtir. Actuellement là, nous passons jamais suspend. Nous besoin toute main, toute tête, qui ou grand, qui ou petit. Obligatoire nous invoquer aux solutions. En meilleur Dominica, c'est ça nous commander. Pas laisser valer nous tomber. En petit pays, oh là, nous tous vivons à la paix. Depuis nous enfants, c'est comme ça a été. Faut pas nous jamais oublier, mauvais temps nous expériencer. Quand yon nation glo marché, portez nous aller. Pas grâce bon Dieu nous sauver, si chemin la vie nous continuer. Quand nous avancer, faut nous changer. Préserver, 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 préserver l'amour. Yeah. Préserver, 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 préserver la foi. Aïe. Préserver, 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 préserver espoir. Yeah. Préserver, 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 préserver Dominica.
All right, Dominica, indeed, yes, again, we want to thank you. And the message that is behind was behind the conversation that you just heard. In a nutshell, as it said in the ad that you just saw, please, let's dispose of trash or garbage properly. Okay, and so again, we want to thank the team for putting on that Bean It campaign for and on behalf of country Dominica. Yes, it's about that time when we move to another gear. That's our second gear, as it were, to the Civic Vibes program this afternoon. And as mentioned before, we will be having a very candid discussion, a very informative discussion, educational discussion, a very thought-provoking discussion as well, as it pertains to collective action for benefits of your country, my country. And who better can we have that conversation with than Dr. Simone Matthew. She is a daughter of Dominica and continues to do a very, very good work, a tremendous work out there for and on behalf of Dominicans. In just a while, we're going to switch gear to her so that she can, start the ball rolling as it were. We also will be having with her, I haven't seen him as yet, Dr. Brother Alex Bruno. We're having him as our guest as well here on the Civic Vibes platform this afternoon. So to get the ball rolling, as it were, let me just move across and say a hi and a beautiful hello to Dr. Simone Matthew. That is at least the last time you'll be hearing Dr. Simone Matthew this afternoon. She told me categorically, Lofty, the purpose of that interview, just call me Simone. So again, Simone, good afternoon to you.
Yes, hi Lofty. Thank you so much for having me on your program this afternoon. Good afternoon to Paula Celestin. Nice to meet you. And of course, Mr. Alex Bruno and all our viewers on Facebook. It is indeed an honor to be here for this program. Lofty, I am locked in every Sunday listening to Civic Vibes. I try not to miss an episode because what you're doing is such important work. So again, thank you for having me on. And I guess I will defer to Alex and then come back to introduce myself, or should I do that right now?
You can go right ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, sure. So for your audience, I'm Simone Matthew, originally from Bathurst in Dominica. I've been up here in the US for about 25 years. And first and foremost, I am Dominican to the bone. So I have to tell you, not a day goes by without me thinking of how we can come together, work together collectively to move our beautiful island forward. And I think, it's kind of natural for all of us to think that way. I think once the grays start showing up in the hair, we start thinking about, what contribution of significance we can make to our home island. And of course, that is the same for me. By way of profession, I am a subject matter expert and an associate professor of industrial organizational psychology, which means I simply study the psychology of work, motivation, leadership, team building. I study and also teach in that area. So again, it is great to be here with you, Lofty, and also by way of what I do. I am very interested in how we can move Dominica forward on the economic level. So while we may have many battles to fight in Dominica, we are fighting the political battle, we are fighting battles against domestic violence, child abuse, and even the environment, as Mrs. Lambert-Nesty just mentioned. I think sometimes we forget the role of the economic battle that we're fighting so that our people in Dominica can be more economically and financially independent. So that is certainly my area of interest as it pertains to Dominica. And I do so via my 2 radio programs, Untapped Potential, as well as Roots Connections on Q, and also via my Facebook Live programs on Push Past. And so again, Lofty, thank you for having me on the program. Thank you for the invitation. And I look forward to a healthy and productive discussion this afternoon.
And indeed, Simone, you're very much welcome here. But just before we move across to Brother Alex Bruno, let me thank you again, Simone, for making it here this afternoon. It's all about collective action for the benefit, for the betterment of our country, Dominica. All of us love this country with a passion, and we really want to see Dominica move up a notch in so many ways. Just before we go across to Brother Alex, who is here now with us, let me just read a brief bio. It's brief. It's not in no way, shape, or form, the true representation of the potential and the talents and the skills that Simone possesses, but in terms of just for your knowledge and knowing much more about her, let me just go through this short bio. It says here, Associate Professor of Psychology at the University of Phoenix, creator, producer, host, radio programs, Roots Connection and Q, and Untapped Potential. Published author, Push Past 10. You heard Simone mention about Push Past 10 in her introduction a while ago. It continues here with 25 years of experience in psychology and adult education. Empowerment through education serves as Simone's driving motto, okay? Simone is a seasoned digital educator and administrator who's for learning in the digital spans over 15 years. Simone is a Dominican at heart and firmly believes that whether we live at home or overseas, we have a responsibility to find ways to give back to our home island, Dominica. In this regard, about a year and a half ago, she embarked on a journey to connect Dominicans at home and abroad to promote Dominica's people, businesses, and culture via a popular radio program, Roots Connections on Q, and Untapped Potential, as well as her YouTube and Facebook live programs. Simone's goal is to ensure that recognize that with our technological advancement, Dominica is now a country without borders. The opportunities for collaboration, mentorship, and e-commerce ventures serve to empower Dominicans to become more economically and financially independent so that they are better able to make other decisions which impact their lives. So ladies and gents, young people in the listening audience and viewing audience as well, that in a nutshell, in brief, is the young lady that you'll be hearing speaking to us in just a while, in Dr. Simone Matthew. Thank you very much. Let me now move across to Brother Alex Bruno. Alex Bruno is no stranger to us in Dominica. Alex Bruno, a pleasant good afternoon to you, brother.
Lofty, it's good to be here. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to also share the platform with my country girlfriend, lady, sister Paula, and my dear friend and sister Simone. Looking forward to the conversation.
Alex, you're looking like a real professor this afternoon, man.
Well, I think it's a habit that gets to you after a while, you know.
Yes, yes.
So I'm here, you know. I have to present myself to you, Lofty. I take whatever I do very, very, very seriously, and I am looking forward to giving all of me today to your audience and to everybody who's interested.
All right, good. In terms of, before we get to Alex Bruno, in terms of his other introductory statement, before getting to the meat of the discussion, like I did for Simone, let's read a brief bio, that is the keyword, brief, of the Alex Bruno. It says here, Alex Bruno is a trained political philosopher with special competencies in government and political institutions. Bruno has a proven track record of conducting field surveys on the island of Dominica and elsewhere over the past 2 decades. Over the past 2 decades. Over the last decade, however, he has specialized in electoral opinion polling, which is tied to his professional training. As an instructor of political science and government, Bruno engages with students on a daily basis, and this contributes, to him remaining current, relevant, and topical. He continues here by saying, in addition to his professional arrangements as a professor, Bruno is a director of operations at one of the Caribbean's culture, that is the OCC, and managing director of Caribbean's Agency for Political Advancement, that is CAPA. Bruno provides professional political consultation and is known as a political analyst / strategist in Dominica and across region. Mr. Bruno holds a Master of Arts in Political Science and a Bachelor of Arts with a major in philosophy and a theater minor, Florida Atlantic University. Bruno's doctoral dissertation focuses on Caribbean identities and the political culture of a region. Bruno is a passionate believer in the inclusion of youth and women in electoral politics and is a strong advocate for the political realignment of Dominica and the Caribbean region. Again, ladies and gentlemen, that in brief is the man, Alex Bruno, talking to us in just a bit. Alex, before we get into the meat of things, anything that you want to get off your chest as it pertains to your introductory statement?
Well, nothing really. I mean, I'm just excited. I'm open to your questions, and I promise to give as vivid and honest answers as I can. And I don't really want to say much. I think my little bio, it's good. Probably a bit too much. You know me already, Lofty. So I'm just here to serve, to respond to the people or whatever question you ask. I am sure I'm going to give it my best and give you the most contrite answer that I can give. So thanks for having me. Thanks for your lovely introduction. Let's get the show on the road.
True. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just put into context the conversation this afternoon that we're about to have with these two esteemed people, the esteemed Dominicans, that is. Over a number of years now, if those of us listening, we are true to our consciences, that is, we will realize in Dominica that what some of us grew up on in terms of the Kudme spirit, in terms of the helping one another, in terms of the unselfishness that goes on in our various communities, where before persons got together to accomplish certain tasks. We are slowly but surely seeing a decline of those fundamentals, these basics as it were. And so it's on that premise this afternoon that we are going to pitch that conversation with Alex and Ms. Simone this afternoon, and as well Paula will chip in to basically make that conversation what it's supposed to be. So without further ado, let us start with the community aspect of things. I think Paula is well equipped, and Paula may have a question or two to get that conversation in here this afternoon. Paula, I yield to you at this time.
Thank you very much, Lofty. Good afternoon to you, Mr. Bruno, and good afternoon to Dr. Simon.
Afternoon.
Yeah, Lofty. Mr. Bruno grew up in a community of Calibishi. And many persons may not know him. Well, when I say many persons, maybe the younger folks may not really remember maybe Mr. Bruno. But I remember Mr. Bruno growing up. Lofty, you spoke about the Kudbe. And for those who were born maybe in the late 1990s, like 1992, 95, somewhere thereabout, some of them may not know the word Kudme. Mr. Bruno, this afternoon, I would like you, Dr. Simmons, to explain to the general public what Kudme means. And would you recommend that Kudme type be brought back to our communities? So we can start the ball rolling from there by explaining what Kudme is all about.
Yes, so I think, Alex, if you don't mind, I jump in. I think that is an excellent place to get started with this conversation, Paula, because I think that those of us who grew up in Dominica in, the 70s, the 80s, I even want to go as far as the 90s, will remember that Kudme spirit. We all had our different political views back then. We supported different political parties, but when elections was over, we looked out for our neighbors. My mom, Medina Senhouse, tells me stories of growing up in Dubla, and her mother had about 8 children. And she would feel quite comfortable simply leaving the kids at home and saying to the neighbor, keep an eye on them, right? While she went off to work in the garden. Similarly, in my lifetime, I witnessed my mom cooking not just food on Sundays, because we often use the example of, we would cook enough food on a Sunday to ensure that if someone stopped by, we had enough food to share with them. My mom would literally cook food every day of the week and feed 9 of us in a very small household, plus 4 of our neighbors every day. And to this day, we grew up very humbly. We did not have much. To this day, I ask my mom, how were you able to provide and feed all these people every day? And she looks at me and she simply says, God provided. God provided, but I am concerned that what we're seeing right now is an increasing political divide where politics extends beyond election to the fact that now when my mom goes home to Dominica, she's being told, oh, be careful what colors you wear when you go to Roseau, because that might offend a certain political party, and you want to ensure that no one is offended simply because you're wearing the wrong shirt, the wrong blouse, the wrong color. So in fact, we are seeing a stark difference between what we saw when we were growing up and what we are seeing now. Our neighbors are simply too divided, and I'm really happy that we're having this conversation today to talk about how we can come together for collective action.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Simon, for basically taking the first knock at that question, that all-important question, or the Kudme action, the Kudme spirit, as we knew it back then, that was for the betterment of a country on a whole. Brother Alex, any thoughts on that opening question?
Yeah, well, I think Simone handled it well. What I can add to what she said is that the Kudme pretty much epitomizes the community spirit that we had in Dominica once upon a time. And that was true up until the 1980s, even 90s, to an extent, because there was a time under the Freedom Party reign that they started this National Day of Community Service activities. And that extended the Kudme from just a community thing to a national thing, where we had an entire national day to do Kudme, to give service, voluntarily, to come together, to work together. So Kudme is not one thing, it's a lot of things tied up together. It's sharing, it's giving, it's caring, it's building, it's uniting, it's working together. So in the 80s, it became even stronger under the Freedom Party government. And I think up until the early 90s to mid 90s, after that, I think we have seen a kind of a dissipating of that kind of a Kudme spirit. And the question is, how do we get it back, Lofty? That is what I think we have diagnosed the problem. We know what it is. The issue is, how do we get back this Dominican spirit, so to speak? So I would say in one sentence, that Kudme, and it's a good question, Paula, you ask, Kudme really pretty much interprets as being the Dominican spirit. That thing that makes us Dominicans to the bone, where we can put our shoulder to the wheel, side by side, and push that house together. Mezemario, pum pum. And you actually, no matter what party you're part of, you're pushing together, you're joining hands together. Today, I'm not too sure that this is the case in Dominica. I do not see it happening, quite frankly, in certain communities, and there are good reasons why.
So Alex, a man like you that lived the Kudme way, for the younger generations that are listening now and watch that podcast sometimes later, can you go in a little more detail as to some of the activities that we participated in as it relates to that kind of action?
With everything community life, from gardening, because back in the day, gardening, agriculture was the way. I think now it is felt that this is not a thing that is blinging now, and that's the biggest mistake we've made in Dominica. That's for another topic, maybe, another discussion. But from gardening, every Saturday, the men used to go to another person's holding and take care of their needs, cut the grass, plant, dig the fig holes, maybe 200-300 fig holes, do the yam beds. So nobody paid for service or for work. Today, if you employ somebody to go work for you, it's like $50-$60 a day, maybe more $100 a day. But back in the day, people work for each other. So every Saturday, somebody worked for somebody else. There's a little job in between, but nothing to worry about. So that is one. Cleaning homes. People like Valley, Satinet, and so on used to go around cleaning the people's homes, scrubbing the steps, doing stuff together that probably the older persons could not do as a team. So they were a team of people. The scouts or the Girl Guides used to go around doing those things. To even the more demanding chores. I mean, back in the day too as well, people would move homes together. And when you move in a house, or you slaughter in an animal, a cow, or you pull in a boat of fish, I mean, everybody got involved. And if you are a boy who's helping with pulling up the boat, you have a lunch because they're going to give you a couple of fish to go with. And so on, the nurses and doctors and priests and police,
True.
They do not get to push. They're around, and we make way for them to be served first. Right now, we don't regard people who serve us. It's like if a priest or a police or a nurse or a doctor is there trying to get fish, we push them over instead of helping them to get fish. So we had a sort of community organization that gave respect and demanded respect and really got involved in everything. So everything that the community did it together. That is the general feeling of that Kudme thing. And again, for those people who are existing now, I don't think that is the same as it was yesterday.
Yeah, and Lofty, if I can chime in and add an example as well. You know, I think many of us on the Facebook Live will also remember the occasions where folks would come from the countryside to attend school in Roseau, right? And in exchange for boarding and lodging, they would simply bring produce from the countryside. So again, you had that exchange, that community spirit, where instead of having to pay someone to have your son or your daughter who was attending a school in Roseau pay for them to stay in your house, every time that son or daughter would go up to the countryside, they would come back down on a Sunday with fresh produce, fresh provisions, maybe some fish, so that you fed the entire family. So again, sadly, you know, I don't think that we see too many examples of the Kudme spirit, and it is far and wide. You know, I saw recently where someone had lost their wallet, and in order someone found the wallet and was demanding $2,000 for the return of the wallet. And I'm thinking to myself, this cannot be happening in Dominica, where we had that spirit of helping each other, being there for each other. Now you have someone who's asking for $2,000. And I think, and we will get into this in the discussion, but it speaks of the desperation, because we no longer have that Kudme spirit. We no longer support each other. There are no job opportunities. People have to find ways to sustain themselves, right? So by any means necessary, and if it means that I find your wallet and I demand that you pay me $2,000, it's a way to sustain myself. So I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah.
Yes, Alex,
Hey.
we grew up in the same community of Kalibishi.
Yeah.
And if you can recall, when persons had small homes to be built, especially like the little homes that were made out of the local wood,
Timber, yeah.
and even the plywood. And if it's on a weekend or sometimes maybe on the weekdays, based on the amount of persons that would come around and give the help, this person would get their house built for free. And
Yes.
all we would do is to just cook a pot of food. You make a pot of broth, a pot of soup or something, and everybody would come and help, and this would be for free. I can recall on a Saturday, like you said, that persons would go out there and, you know, help with persons at their home, either to scrub the steps and whatever. I remember this broom that was growing by the side of the road. It looked something like some little trees, little branches like. And I can recall we used to take this and all tie it up and, you know, go and assist the elderly persons in sweeping their yard and all of this. Now today, like you rightly said, Persons are looking for pay for everything that they do. You ask a young person, maybe a young adult, to carry a bag for an elderly person from one point to the other. And the first thing they're doing, they're extending their hand for some kind of money. And back in the days, we never knew these things. So like you rightly said, you know, we have to really see how we can bring all these things back.
But you see, Paula, you speaking and I'm listening and I'm thinking. And what I think is lacking right now is the leadership, you know, because when we were growing up, we had leaders like Mr. Burley Williams, like Campbell Challenger, even Osborne Theodore, who didn't say much, but he looked at you and you know what you had to do. Nibs Alexander, my grandfather, Sylvester Joseph, Cuthbert Joseph, and the bigger guys like Abel, although Abel was a bit rough around the edges, he was a little wicked, I think. He used to beat me sometimes. But so we had leadership in the community. Mina, if that guy, what's his name again? Desmond's mother. Her name eludes me at this moment. Vona, Boboy. So these people led and they guided you, they molded you. And we didn't know about, well, we knew, of course, there was politics, but their politics, their partisanship didn't have anything to do with controlling their community. Even Froggy, who alas walked away from the village council just the other day because he claimed that the government is going behind his back to do work that he should be doing as a councillor, as a chair of the council. That could not happen in our days. No government can come and tell people what to do outside of the council. So we have a leadership void in the community, and as such, politicians and whoever can just come in and take advantage and just destroy the community spirit that we once enjoyed. So if we can reestablish leadership, people like Ray Warrington, I hear him speaking about the drowning that we had there recently and what we could do to probably get people trained. So Ray Webster, a few leaders, me, you, Paula, we have to do more to sort of give what we got when we got what we got. And you said too that most of the young people in Calabishi may not know me, which is true. I have been living away. But what I have been trying to do is to, through my Calabishi Chronicles that I'm doing, is to sort of give a sort of narrative of who I am, what we have done, so that the younger folks, and they are indeed gravitating towards it, they're actually listening to the story. So I am not a blank page. I mean, the younger people may not have not grown up with me, but those who know me know people like Kiro and Valley and Ugly and so on, and Gerald and Santi. So I have not lost touch. The connection is still there. It is just that we have to find a way to bring back what is good and to build on what we still have, which is wonderful.
Yeah, and I'm happy that you added that as well, Alex, because, you know, I'm looking at the Facebook comments and Emma Daniel raised a very important question. The question is why? That's what she's asking. Why don't we have that spirit of Kudme anymore? We cannot bring it back until we know why it has disappeared. So, Alex, I think that you made great strides in terms of beginning that part of the conversation. But also, I think the why that she's asking is we've lost it because we have to simply spend our energy and our time looking out for our own, right? When folks have no jobs, we have no opportunities, we don't know how ends are going to meet tomorrow. Well, who has time to focus on your neighbor? All you're really concerned about is that your children's bellies are empty. You have nothing to provide for breakfast in the morning. You don't know how you're going to pay Domlek. You don't know how you're going to pay Dowasco. So that is the why, Emma, that we're looking at in terms of, well, if there's no opportunities, but you know, it's a little bit more complicated than that, right? Because our families too had nothing, yet they were still able to provide that Kudme spirit. So as I'm thinking out loud, it still begs the question. So I'm not sure if you guys have anything to contribute.
It is, yeah. What has changed, Simone and for Emma and those who are inquiring, I think is the political culture has changed, whereby we still have our mainstream culture, mainstream belief, but politically we have switched in terms of the way in which we value things. And you said it right, that we cannot fend for ourselves, so we can't worry about the community now, which is true. That is just standard modus operandi of anybody, to fend for themselves and their families. You cannot do it, mainly because of the shifting in dynamics. My grandmother was the biggest labor rights ever that existed in Dominica. But she never one day told me, or never did I see her receive any favors from any politician. When we didn't have, she said, let's go and catch 2 little Civic. Let's go and do what? No, I think that is not old time. This is still pertinent, where you kind of procure the stuff that you need, the fundamental stuff you need for yourself. If you rely on somebody to do the basic things for you, your food, your clothing, your housing, shelter, school, medication, you're in problems. So yes, that's where we are today, thanks to the shifting in the political dynamics, the political culture that says each man is to themselves, and it's better dead than red, or better red than dead, or whatever works to those effects. So all of that contribute to this sort of selfishness, Simo, the selfishness that I think we have harbored in Dominica today. I think it has a lot to do with the self-centeredness, selfishness. That is one of the main reasons why we have lost the Kudme spirit to an extent.
Guys, let me ask us a question in that, and those of you on the live, I'll be coming to some of your comments in just a while. But Simone, Alex, some of us who are older, we may hold that what we're speaking of now, the Kudme action, close to our heart, and we may exhibit it from time to time. But the younger generation, that some of them know nothing about that kind or these kind of actions, where do you think we can start to kind of infuse that kind of attitude within our young people, so that that thing can continue? Because when we all move out from the stage, as it were, if the young people are not ready and willing to take it up and move along with it and even pass it on, then that would be a thing of the past. So how do you guys think we can re-inject that or reintroduce that, especially where our young people they are concerned?
Yeah, Lofty, I think that's a very good question. And I think what we have to keep in mind is that our children, our young people, they live what they learn and they learn what they live. So we can tell a child forever and a day to be respectable, be kind to your neighbors, don't be selfish, be willing to share. But what do the kids see? What do your children see in your own household? They hear you gossiping about the neighbor. They hear you talking about you have excess this and that. Back when we were recovering from Maria, many people had excess building supplies that they hoarded until it rotted rather than give it to their neighbors. So our children, whether we know it or not, they are looking at us. They are looking at us and they're learning at us. So in terms of answering your question, Lofty, we have to be the example. Each and every one of us has to be the example. We have to be the example to those who do not share our religious beliefs. We have to be the example to those who do not share our political affiliations. We have to be the example for those we don't agree with, because we know that our children are looking at us. And so if we want to reinstill that Kudme spirit in the next generation, we have to look in the mirror and we have to say, which am I contributing to? Am I contributing to creating a Kudme society, or am I contributing to creating a society where we are all selfish and we are only concerned about our needs?
Simon, I thought you were going to say, are we contributing to a Kudme society or cool out society? But Alex.
Yeah, maybe a cool out society. That's the direction we're going in, right?
Yes, Alex.
Yeah. I mean, without the community spirit and the way of life that we have known, we have what we have now. And you can extend cool out into mendicant, or dependent, reliant society. And a good friend of mine told me, we are generally Dominicans are freegans. I think I mentioned it in an earlier program that I did. And when I said freegan, what does that mean? He said, well, as in vegan, strict vegetarian, we are freegans because we are strictly about freeness, what we can get. So we are a people who are in the friggin' mode, and we have to find a way to get out of it. So if we moved away from who we are, which we have, we are where we are today. And one of the problems, Lofty, in trying to solve that problem is casting aspersions and calling names, name calling, castigating, branding, which is not going to help. It's going to make the problem worse, because if you shame me as a dependent person, no fault of mine generally, and even if it's my choice, but I'm not going to necessarily work with you because you already shame me. I am kind of thinking that we can't build a coalition to get me out of where I am. So let me stay where I am. And that's where I'm going to remain for the next 20, 30, 40 years. And that is the more serious problem that we're dealing with. We have to build coalitions, find ways to say, guys, that's what we can do. So I know how tight it is. Let's wean ourselves out of it. And here is what we can do. Steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But we cannot leave Dominicans to themselves to fend for themselves. Nor can we cast aspersions to those who are trying to fend for themselves selfishly, albeit, or whatever else you want to add to it. So Lofty, that is where I would like us to focus on, how we deal with the problem. Because we know the problem exists, but how we deal with it can make it worse.
True, dealing with the problem and basically get into the root of it, Alex. I concur with you. But I think when Simon was speaking earlier, when the question was asked about are there any actions that we used to partake in that still exist today, one activity stands clear out in my mind now, and I know you guys will agree with me. Our fishermen, our fisher folks, Alex will know that very well. Maybe Simon will know that, Paula will know that as well. Our fisher folks today, even today, when they go by the bay, Alex alluded to that point earlier, and they cast their net. You have the community, some persons of the community coming together and help pull in that net, pull in that seine, as it were. And that right there is a clear and living example of the Kudme action, the collective action for the greater good that we're speaking about. And so if we can translate that to other areas of our life, be it in agriculture, be it in home building, be it in helping out in sports activities, helping young people with their schoolwork, whatever it is, homework, whatever it is, then we, that at least would be a good way to kind of reinstill those values. And so I want to say big up to the fisher folks among us who some of them are still practicing. They are living examples of what we are talking about today.
Yeah, but you're right. And not just that, even in cricket, we used to play cricket together and we used to contribute, everybody contribute to what we needed. For instance, food. We didn't have money, but when we invited guests to come to play with us, everybody had to contribute with a dashing, with a fish, a pound of chicken, a cube, or whatever it is. And when everything comes together, the bigger girls like Popte and even the same Mary, the fish, an amazing calibishi stalwart, they would cook the food. And at the end of the day, we cater for everybody without trying to ask people to sponsor us. We would put our little $2 each to buy our badger, the cricket ball. I couldn't afford much, I would put a 50 cents, but probably Santi might put $1.50. And we didn't have to go to anybody. And the other things the bigger men used to do, like Mr. Joe Bugunu, they would say, well, Alex, if you score 50 today, you're getting $1 for every run after that. So I would go there and want to score 50 every time. So it is performance driven. Mr. Bugunu didn't tell me if I score runs, come for a drink or come for money. He said, look, score runs. And you score above 50, $1 a run every run after that. So I get $50. And if I score 60, I get $60. So you were driven to do things in the community without having to go and say, give me. So you worked for everything that you wanted. You performed and you achieved the stuff that you actually earned. So Lofty is still there, we just have to recalibrate, rechange, reset. And as you said, the young people are looking at what we do. I think Simon said it. Let's assure the young people that we can do it. And if we can convince the younger people, I think our job is half solved, because men like you and me and Paula and then Simon, I'm satisfied. I'm very comfortable where I am in my life today. So I don't have to do much if I don't want to do much, if I choose to be selfish, but I'm concerned about the next generation. We have to help them, because if not, what's going to happen? That they're going to pass on the same mentality to the other generation. And before you know it, Dominic, we find ourselves in a serious social slum. I mean, Haiti is a beautiful country, but look at where Haiti is today. Venezuela is a very wealthy country, but look at what happened because of the same mentality of people trying to survive because of the situation they found themselves in. So we cannot give up.
Yeah, and I think all very good points, Lofty, Alex, but I think we're missing an important aspect of this conversation, because while we're thinking about the lack of Kudme spirit in Dominica, and one of the reasons I always tune into Lofty's program is that he brings in the external voice. So he'll bring in people from the Caribbean region and far afield to add the discussion. One of the things we are overlooking right now is to focus on those cultures that still embrace the Kudme spirit. So I think we're very quick to criticize, the Chinese, the Indian people. We're quick to criticize those who pool their resources together and they're able to create prosperity for their people. And I just want to share a quick example with our audience on this topic, because my husband went to Ross University back when it was in Dominica. And he told me one of the reasons that the Indian students always excelled in their exams is because they had all their resources, and what would they do? They would share it. They would pass around past papers, CDs, any material that they knew would be helpful to the next Indian student, whether they knew them or not. And in that way, the entire Indian community was able to elevate itself and was able to pass the exams and earn the highest scores. So I think in order for us to learn more of what is possible when we learn to re-embrace that Kudme spirit, we have to look at other cultures who are doing it well. And the Chinese people come to mind, the Indian people come to mind, and maybe our Facebook Live audience can tell us of other societies where that Kudme spirit still exists and how they're able to be prosperous because of that spirit.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Simone. As we move along, folks, let me just go across now to the Facebook Live feed so that we can take a comment or two and have you guys respond. As our listeners, our viewers, they are cherished, and so we always inculcate them in whatever decisions we are having here. It says here, Emma Daniel is writing here. One of our problems plaguing the call for collective action is that we also think that our idea is just the best without due consideration to the pros and cons of ours versus that of others. When we can sit and dissect a proposal, examining the pros and cons and choosing the one with less cons will benefit most, then Emma Daniel is saying we will succeed. There's much to chew on that, so let me pass it over to you guys based on Emma's comment and see how we can dissect that.
Well, I guess we're both waiting on each other. I was hoping Simone would jump in. Well,
basically, Emma is saying in a nutshell that why that Kudme thing that we're talking about don't work sometimes is we don't sit and discuss pros and cons of any situation and let the best minds or let the best ideas go forward. That in a nutshell is what I got from you.
Yeah, Alex, I'll give you the first to the mic this time.
Yeah, well, one cannot fault that. One cannot fault that on a whole. I mean, I think it's a well thought out statement, and I mean it's straightforward as well. I mean, if you do not involve other minds in an idea, the idea is just the idea in your mind or probably in your conception. So the more people who come together is better. That's what I've always preached. And Dame Eugenia told me that, I don't think that's her words, but she said, let's people can stay on your TED. So you think, sometimes we think that we have this bright idea to save the world, but if only if you surrendered it to other people's reasoning, you would see how much broader that idea could be. So I support wholeheartedly the gist of the text that Emma sent. And Emma is someone who is wise in that capacity.
Yeah, and I also think what we're seeing is at play is people's egos, right? I'm the one who can do the best job in Dominica. No one can do a better job for me. And the unfortunate thing about that is we see that not only in the work environment, but in many social clubs. So I hear of occasions where people are like in the choir and, you know, they don't want to share the responsibility with the younger people because they believe that they're the one who can do the best job. So I think it speaks on different levels in terms of the infestation of this lack of goodness spirit that we're seeing. And if I might just add to the conversation as well, you know, we are paying the price severely. I think we can all agree that we are paying the price severely for that lack of that Dominican spirit, that lack of that collective spirit that we are talking about today, and we're referring to it as the goodness spirit. Because now, since we are all left to fend for ourselves, what are our options? Right? Our options now boil down to going to the PAL rep every weekend, maybe to pay your rents, to pay something, going to the prime minister to beg for a scholarship, going to beg for materials. So I think we can already start seeing that this lack of a collaborative effort is really impacting us. And that is one of the reasons that I'm so focused on economic and financial opportunities for Dominica. Because with technology, look at us. I'm in Georgia, Alex is in Florida, Paula and Lofty are in Dominica, and our audience are far and wide. So now with all the technology that we can take advantage of, I like to think of Dominica as an island, a country without borders. So what opportunities can we now create? We have e-commerce, we have technology, we have resourceful people, we have the drive, we have the ambition. I mean, think of how many of us, Alex, Paula Lofty, left Dominica with nothing. And we came to this country, we went to Guadeloupe, we went to Antigua, we went to Canada, UK, you name it, and completely rebuilt our lives. So that just tells us the caliber of people that we have in Dominica and outside of Dominica. Now, how do we create a collaborative, a collective of people who are willing to do the work to create that financial opportunity, to create economic opportunity, so that people now have the choice in other areas of their life? Because let's face it, many of our Dominican brothers and sisters keep voting for the same political party because they believe they're the only ones with the money. Now, if we as a collective can create those financial opportunities for our people, imagine what other decisions they would be able to make independently. So, you know, I'm an eternal optimist, so I'm always optimistic of what we can do. And I think that we are on the cusp of a very important journey in Dominica by pooling our resources together, which is one of the reasons I was so happy, Lofty, that you decided to do this program today.
Thank you very much, Ms. Simmons. Okay, Mr. Bruno.
Yeah.
Someone goes by the name of Hamilton Josie, and this person is saying that we would have been too young to know of the first Kudme that took place in Kalibishi was the Savon Pie Feeder Road.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether you can recall when Edison George, someone who goes by the name of Biscuit, is deceased today.
Yeah.
I can recall when he was the chairman of the Kalibishi Village Council. And I can recall very well when villagers used to cut the grass and plant flowers and all of this. And all of this was done for free. I want to say that this separation that we have from persons doing Kudme, I'm saying all this came as a result of the government, the sitting government that we have. Because I don't want people to get me out of context. I do not want people to say that I am saying that the government should not employ persons to cut the grass and what of this. But I can recall very well when the flowers and the grass was being cut in the different communities, this was done by villagers and it was all for free. I'm saying today, we have what we call the NEP. And I believe it would have been much better for the government to create employment by building factories. And we can have young people being employed instead of they cutting grass by the side of the road for payment. Because back in the days, this was done like in a Kudme style. And today, persons have to be getting paid to cut the grass. When these very young people who have gotten a very good education could be working in a factory or somewhere. So I believe this division and this thing about, persons want $1, they want $5 for everything that they do, and they're no longer interested in Kudme and helping persons. This division came as a result of this government wanting to pay persons for things that they should not even be being paid for. Thank you very much.
Well, there's a reason why parties do that. And when you say government, government comprise different parties and different representatives. So the government of Dominica also comprise the opposition party in the minority as opposition, and the majority serves in the executive. So we want to be very careful when we say that, because not every politician who is in government does that. And it is clear to see that the legacy of those who have been winning for the past 2 decades is tied to exactly what you're saying. Let me even add some layer to what you just said about the pain for the Kudme. I heard from someone in Silver Lake that for the National Day of Service a couple of years ago, they were paid to do National Day of Service by a politician. And I'm like, whoa, how do you come back from that? The Pampo Foundation is very well known to have been started by yours truly and other people who collaborated. And when we did that, we were looking after the well-being of the centenarians. And every centenarian, back then, we negotiated with the National Bank of Dominica. They got like $300 a month every month. OD Brisbane, they got wholesome foods every month. They got free water, free light, everything from the public, from the private sector. And the foundation was never involved in personally giving stuff. We negotiated, everybody got stuff. Fast forward to some time later, see what happened with the Yes We Care, where people are now being paid to do what the families were doing for free and the corporate citizens were doing voluntarily. They got gas, they got money, they got everything. They got lights, they got water. Plus the people at the homes of those elderly Dominicans had the incentive to do what they had to do because they were getting help. So you remove all of that and then you jump in as the patron of these people and you just change the whole dynamics. So you find the elderly is now saying, well, merci bon Dieu pour qui moun, when it was not designed to be so. So it's even worse than you stated, Paula. It goes beyond that. It goes into every facet of our society, where some clever people, maybe not too clever people, have taken advantage because of the change in political dynamics, the change in political culture, which is very hard to get over. Emma made a point a while ago about people surrendering their ideas to other people, but sometimes ideas should be rooted in proven theories and things that you know will work. So, like for instance, if Dr. Honeychurch would suggest a way in which probably we could redesign something that deals with the anthropology of our nation, he can take ideas and advice from other people as well, because he will be the first to tell you I'm open to anybody's advice. But it would be very wrong to say, no, your idea is wrong, my idea is right, use my idea instead. So there is a way in which you counteract people who suggest things in their proficiency and how you work with it, because anybody's ideas can be developed on, but not everybody can present the same ideas to the table. I mean, how can I present the same idea to a discussion that Simon is presented? No, we have different ways of doing it. I'm not going to challenge us and say mine is better or put mine instead. I'm going to say, well, why don't we do it that way? And Simon will say, oh yeah, we should do it that way. So I think this idea of collaboration respectfully is missing, because everybody's an expert on everything in Dominica those days. And that is a problem, a big, sad problem.
Yes, indeed. Every time that this situation or this topic rather comes around, there are always persons that really tell us about living examples, things that they did, things that the parents did in order to have that kind of goodness spirit survive up to today in a sort of way. One person is saying in the live that their father was a farmer, and the father would basically give off some of his farming produce to the fishermen in return for the fish.
Yes.
And that in and out of itself lends itself to that kind of community bonding, that community spirit that we had before, in that there was this kind of selfish love, as it were, where persons who do much more battering. So if you have that, I have that, we can trade off. But we are slowly but surely seeing that kind of really selfish attitude, that persons want to hoard, as it were, have much more in their bosom, and knowing that Alex, Bruno, or Simon don't have anything to eat or give their children to eat or drink, and they'll be comfortable with that. And with these discussions that we're having, at least it is a step in trying to stamp out that kind of, let me use a very strong term there, that nasty attitude, because we have to stamp it out. We cannot continue like that as a people, knowing fully well what we grew up on, the benefits thereof, and we play as if today, some of us play as if today, then these things were not part of us. And when we see our younger folks doing contrary to what we knew, then we tend to chastise them. But as Simon said before, the young people learn what they live. So if we are not ready to practice what we preach, then some of us may as well shut up, where that kind of, conversation where the Kudme type is concerned. I just shall plug that in.
Yeah. But before Simon jumps in, there's another problem too, Lofty, that we have, which is bigger than the conversation we're having, where, the Dominica, your OECS dollar was pegged to the US dollar, I think somewhere in the 70s, 73, 74, 75, somewhere thereabout. So we became subsidiary of the capital world. And the capital world does not see barter and indigenous ways as contributing to the GDP, to the economy. So there's no way to evaluate that trade. Mm-hmm. So with the new arrangement that we had starting in the 70s, that barter arrangement was not something that was encouraged in the system, where people had to pay real value for service instead of giving things for service, because the state is not looking good, because the value does not add up in terms of GDP, the annual gross spending on values and goods and services. So that, to the reconfiguration, the realignment of our country and the region, the OECS for us for sure, has a lot to do with that. If you look at maybe Barbados or Trinidad or Guyana, you may very well see that spirit of community probably is a bit more rife than, let's say, the OECS countries. And I think that might have a lot to do with the realignment of our economy, this new idea of the capitalist world where John Brown is coming to give service to you, but there's no value towards that. That doesn't go to the state coffers, or there is no recording of it, and it's not tracked. It's outside of the economy. So we have to do real things. Pay for that, pay for that, pay for that. So the value is added towards that. So it manages inflation, it boosts the credibility of the country, stuff for borrowing and stuff like that. So that tool of we should not lose track of that bigger conversations as well, where we became a sort of devouring beast to our own capitalist interest. And that capitalism too can be a very selfish, selfless over-accumulation endeavor as well.
Yeah, absolutely, because it promotes, what you can acquire for yourself. So I certainly see your point, Alex. But something else I want to add to the conversation, if I may, is that, that spirit of Kudme spirit, that loss of that spirit, it also creates a vacuum where another mentality sips into the culture of the people. right? So there's a concept in psychology called learned helplessness. And I will just read very quickly for you the definition so we can see if this applies to our situation in Dominica. So this is from Psychology Today, and it says learned helplessness occurs when an individual continuously faces a negative, uncontrollable situation and stops trying to change their circumstances, even when they have the ability to do so. The perception that one cannot control the situation essentially elicits a passive response to the harm that is occurring. So the example that comes to mind with learned helplessness is that many of us here in the US, we may witness generations upon generations of family who are on welfare. These are able-bodied people who can do better for themselves, can reach important goals, can go to school, but because that is the environment that they've been raised in, that is all they know. So my concern is that we're now seeing, in exchange of the Kudma spirit that we once had in Dominica, the mentality we are now seeing in Dominica is that of a learned helplessness, where people simply feel that they do not have the ability to be creative enough to create economic opportunities for themselves. So they simply must go and worship at the feet of the prime minister, maybe to make sure that he knows that that person is a supporter, or to go to the power rep to beg for assistance on a daily basis. So I think we have to be mindful that, yes, we're talking about the removal of the Kudma spirit, but we also have to keep in mind what mentality is replacing that lack of Kudma spirit.
Yeah, and it brings again another idea called rational ignorance, which is a political science term, which suggests that people evade or try away or shy away or avoid becoming knowledgeable on matters just because they fear that the idea of the knowledge is going to cause them to do something differently. So people prefer to remain in their rational ignorance and settle for the same reasons that Simone just explained. So, I mean, so many ideas and theories can be dropped on the problem. We know what the problem is. And I think we have the expertise at home and abroad to address the problem. But the problem is some people who probably believe that they have the better expertise or in a better position are the ones messing it up, because today to talk about Dominicans at home and abroad coming together, working together is a problem. And Lofty, you and Paula can speak to that. I mean, to me, there's two Dominica. There's the diaspora Dominica and there is the Dominica Dominica. Now, I think, like Simone, that we are one Dominican. There's so much energy and resources available in the diaspora. And we are so close now. Look at, we are together because of the internet. But what have we done about that for the past 20 years? We have been driving a wedge because one party is harvesting support from the diaspora to procure their own political legacy. And the other party is so frustrated that they saying things which cause the people that have been harvested to think even worse about them. And as such, the problem becomes worse because those people who are getting the chastising are going to be more resolute. They're going to be more purposeful about what it is that they started doing, especially when it becomes the law, which I suspect plans are afoot to make it become. So Lofty, here is another layer of problems that we have in the two Dominicas. To say for us in the diaspora and those on the homeland to work together now in Dominica, that is a partisan thing. That's a taboo. It's a no-go area. But can we as a people move forward without having the Dominicans who do not live in Dominica participate fully? I don't think so. We don't have enough people living on the island to help in terms of the critical mass to make it happen. We have maybe 100,000, 200,000 people, 150,000 people living overseas, maybe more. Can you imagine if we add that to what we have in Dominica and pull our resources together, what's it going to be? But it has to be a non-partisan approach. How are we going to make it a non-partisan approach at this time? Probably you can tell me, Lofty, you're Paula. Probably you're better qualified to tell me how we're going to fix that problem.
That is a conversation in and out by itself. We have to we have to get on the way in terms of that collective action with Dominicans living here on this rock and also you guys out there wanting to contribute to the betterment of your country. So Alex, we will have that conversation for sure in terms of solutions.
Okay, partner.
Just to strengthen Simon's points, my brother from St. Lucia is writing, that is Mr. is writing here. Kudme is one of the traditional methods which we can employ to assist us in managing current financial challenges. He continues, perhaps Kudme should be seen as COVID-19 practical response and coping mechanism. He continues by writing, we must now mobilize in helping our people rediscover themselves and utilizing the building blocks for future successes, for future success, independent of political patronage and handouts. He says, finally, which I agree with him, let's restore pride to our people. You guys would want to chime in on that?
Yeah, absolutely, Lofty. He is absolutely correct. It really just does boil down to having pride in who we are. You know, many of us, we claim to love Dominica, but I think love is a verb, right? So love is what you are willing to do because you love Dominica. Are you willing to set aside your political affiliation? Are you willing to set aside that everyone has a right to a different opinion? I mean, people come on my Push Past 10 platform all the time, and depending on the topic, you know, they want to bash what I'm saying. And I simply greet them with kindness because I know the mission is bigger than one person who chooses to criticize what we are doing. So I think we have to set aside, we have to come together. And I think it was David Joseph on Facebook who said it well. He said it is the people who has to come together in order to bring about change. When we understand what politics is all about, the role of the politician, then the change will come. So we have to be willing to set aside different political views. I mean, I don't even know what your political views are. I don't know what, you know, what party, you know, Paula might sway towards, what Lofty might sway towards, what Alex might sway towards these days. But here we are. We're having a conversation because for us, pride and love for Dominica is a verb. So we take some time out from our Sunday afternoon. I'm sure, Lofty, there's lots you could be doing, maybe watching some cricket on TV.
A lot.
But we set aside the time to make this possible, to come and have these conversations. And I would really like to see this go beyond just the conversations. So what actions are we willing to take to be a part of this collective action to create the Kudme spirit, to provide financial opportunities, and simply to move Dominica forward?
But you know, Simone, in everything else, the people will not be moved until the leadership move the people. There's always going to, there's always the need for an informed and astute and equipped and capable leadership, not just leadership to move the people. And we have seen it in history, where somebody step up and say, that is how we're going to do it. And those people do not really act on their own. They act based on advice from counselors, people who know how to help to move people. I mean, we moved people in the 70s. His Excellency, the president of Dominica, he was known as the Ayatollah. He didn't do it single-handedly, but he led the charge. And Dominicans moved the mass. Within 5 to 6 months after they moved the mass to vote in a Labour Party, a mass, they moved to take out the party because over the years, over time, a substantial campaign was built, led by a particular desired course of action with a strategy and a focus to take the government out. Yes, there was protest action, but the protest was the last thing. Everything else happened before. So what I think we need to do is to plant Dominica's situation into a wider world scenario and present to the people what will befall Dominica in the next 20, 30, 40 years if we do not change course. That is what they did in the 70s, you know. They told us that Patrick John had sold half of Dominica. They told us that, the leftists, the communists will enter our shores. We were speaking to people who are communists. In those days, we had this left versus right, capitalist versus socialism sort of warfare, the Christians versus the communists. And the people who wanted to rule took the side of the good. They took the side of the right, of the conservative, of the God-fearing. And we transformed Dominica in the 70s. And that happened for a little while. And now we have changed Dominica again. So we need a sort of direction led by people who understand what it is to move the people. Until such time, Simone, Paula, and Lofty, our people will not be moved. Ruzi did it, in 2000. Well, not Ruzi alone, but Ruzi was the pilot, and he got help from all and sundry. So we just need to be able to embrace the leaders, the so-called leaders, must buy into the vision of unity, of togetherness, and drop the ego, which we all have at different proportions, and just say, look, man, what Lofty and them saying, they making sense, man. I really need to be able to do better. But until we do better by the people as leaders, the people are not going to move.
Alex, that is an excellent point. I certainly see what you're referencing, and that is why when I started the conversation, I said we're fighting so many different battles on so many fronts, and that is one of the fronts. But Alex, in the absence of that mood, what are we to do, right? Should we wait for the change of the political leadership, or should we as a people, diasporans and Dominicans on this lovely piece of rock, like Lofty likes to refer to it, should we move the country together in the absence of that change of leadership? What are our options?
Why? Well, when there's no leadership, people perish. And I see different factions will continue emerging until such time that somebody like a Ruzi Douglas step up, or like a Loftus Durand, like a Simone Matthew, like a Paula Celestin, with a totally different mindset. I mean, a mindset that is progressive. Listen to the things Ruzi said when he came. Listen to the things Charles Safran said back in the day. Listen to the things E.O. Leblanc said and what he did. Look at 1967. What did Leblanc do? Cultural renaissance. He changed the way we see, looked at, package, and embrace our culture. Who is willing to create this sort of idea that would spark a renaissance in Dominica? How can we depend on passport sales, citizenship sales for the economy, for the survival folk? That's not a commodity you can sell for long. But what about doing the things that we are good for and we are known by? Why don't we go back to the successful days? So Simone, I'm afraid that if a qualified leadership, an astute leadership, a willing leadership does not step up or is not realized, I think it's there and it just has to be realized. The people will continue to be fighting on all sides, on all angles, from all different areas. We have to get it right. A Dr. Nelson Mandela must step up. A Dr. Martin Luther King in the Dominican context must step up. An Ayatollah Khomeini must step up. Somebody must step up. Or an idea, an ideal to unite Dominica based on who Dominicans are must step up. Until such time, I'm not too sure from my perspective that the people are going to be able to do it on themselves, on their own. Leadership has to drive that. And it has proven to be the case in every circumstance around the world.
Indeed. Guys, I love where that conversation is. I know where Paula love where that conversation is as well, initiated by you guys as the guests. It is all about action. What sort of action can we take as a people to remedy, fix the problems that have been plaguing us so long? But it cannot start without love. We have to love each other. And watching the live, I'm seeing the thin thread running through the live this afternoon, and the song "By Your Love" come to mind. So we're gonna play that song, at least some of that song, so that you guys can take a break. So we're gonna give the people some love now, Alex.
Yeah, man.
Give the people some love now, Simone. Take a break in the process, We'll be right back in just a bit.
We can still love those who we don't want around us. We can still love those who we may not even want to associate with or ever see again. Now I am about to head to see some of my brothers, my friends, perform some amazing music. Yeah. Sometimes I wish that I could get friends. It's just a wish. I wish that we got parents. And the others go and wonder. Never be lady make us. Everyone, every man, every all of this up before I was born. I miss my granny, she would say, the Bible say, don't give me. Verses to the Lion of Judah. Never will I become. I will still to enemies and all friends. To pass me just in the end. I live for the rest of the man above. Behold, everybody, when people listen to.
Well, my brother Sheldon is saying it right. You don't have to be holier than thou. All you have to do is give the people some love. So I think conversation that we're having here, Alex and Simone, and the listening audience out there on the social media field, love is where it starts. We have different levels of love, but I think if we want to see that change that we all designed on, a level of love must go out there to the wider public. That kind of antagonistic behavior, Alex said it, calling persons names and ridicule, and we have to learn, even if we are on different political sides, there has to be a line that we have to draw and say, okay, that is our political lines, but that is a line for Dominica. And so let us meet along those lines. And then, what we are exposing today, then just maybe, that can be the trick to get it done for us.
Lofty, you are right. It's not maybe. Love is key. Love, empathy, and respect. Tolerance as well. But if you have that, and we're not just talking about political leadership, we're talking about civic, social leadership. I'm talking about the pastors and the priests and the people in social groups and so on. So people should not get me wrong or Simone wrong that we're talking about only political leaders, because political leaders are just one facet of the society.
Yep.
We have to find a way to tolerate, to show love, to show empathy. And you cannot act love, if somebody loves you or not, and and there's acting it, And even if you act it well, make people feel comfortable. And that's the beginning of it all. I think that's what the Bible says. The whatever the root of everything is love. The root of everything good is something like that. I'm not a Bible person per se, although I understand the Bible. But if we just believe in our faith and go back to that, that's where it starts. That is really, really where it starts. And people who were against you politically in the last political election and might have died today. I mean, Lofty, I am seeing big comments of people who I love rejoicing over the death of Dominicans, saying, oh, that person was wicked. I cannot pretend. I can't be pretentious. I'm happy he died. I mean, really? And you see it too, Lofty. I will not call names, but I see it all the time. The Portsmouth bus drivers were protested because things are hard. They can't pay their bills. And people who do not support their party saying, oh, you was carrying people election, now you take what you get. That's not the way we're going to build our nation, Lofty. And that is the prevailing attitude across the board. Somebody has to come together and fix this. Probably you, Lofty. Probably Paula. But we cannot, this is not tenable. It's not going to get better until we show love, respect, empathy, and appreciation for the pain that others feel. Because today it might be theirs, tomorrow it's going to be yours.
I couldn't agree more, Alex. And if I might add to the conversation, but before I do, Paul Patterson on Facebook says, learned helplessness is an interesting concept when the government seems to be encouraging it. The idea of keeping people poor so they could beg for crumbs. As a result, they will continue to steal elections. I think the idea has generated a great, but we must educate the younger folks on the importance of education and being in maintaining true democracy. So Paul, I could not agree more. But you know, guys, I am so optimistic. I am really optimistic because I am already seeing how we are coming together in a collective. And, you know, we had that walk last Wednesday where people were standing up for, you know, peace and prosperity and justice in Dominica. So I'm very encouraged. I think there's another walk which we're going to bring on someone in a little while, Lofty, to talk about the walk to the UN on Saturday. So I'm very optimistic. And I'm also optimistic because what I talk about in terms of bringing people together for economic opportunity, I've seen it happen. I've already proven that it can be done and we need to continue. So I'm sure a lot of you would be familiar with the virtual carnival that I organized in January into February. And it was completely nonpartisan. I did not ask the DJs, which government do you support? Are you red, blue, green? It was simply an opportunity to have DJs come on board, get sponsors, get donors in the audience to pay the DJs who were in Dominica, and we are all overseas. So I think we can already see that what we are talking about in terms of bringing our human resources together to help Dominicans financially, and once we're able to help them financially, I think we can all see how this will help people to be more independent with the decisions that they're making. So maybe it's just me, but I am optimistic with regards to what is possible. And I just want to get, you know, the view of the panel on whether or not we should be optimistic going forward.
Well, we should, Simone. Alex made a point a while ago, and I just want to put in something in addition to what he said a while ago. In that, apart from trying to change the modus operandi, as it were, there has to be a conversation as well. It may not be this one we're having, it certainly cannot be this one we're having in the interest of time. But we must have a conversation as well to kind of inject that kind of confidence in the populace. That whenever, because nothing lasts forever, so whenever what we are going through is over in terms of the malgovernance of our country, whenever a new crop, a new bunch of people are placed at the helm of this country, then a certain kind of responsibility these people must carry out. And that kind of responsibility, it has to be effected from the people, from the governees, because right about now, it seems as if we have our wires crossed. What is happening now, the population is at bay as to where the governance go. The type of governance, well, I don't want to call it malgovernance, that is exuded now from the top. It is not people driven. It is top-down driven. So it is a reverse. So I'm suggesting to us, Alex, because Alex is more on the political touch of things. Mm-hmm. Alex, would you agree with me and Paula that whenever what passes for governance today or government today changes, do you agree that there's supposed to be sort of a new awakening, a revived spirit, as it were, to tell these leaders, whoever they are, where we came from, we are not going back there. And so Dominica is ours to mind. Yeah. And it's true you have the title as honorable man or woman, but it is we the people now that will be giving you directives as to how we want our country to be run. And so I firmly believe the phase that we are going through now, it may not be the best phase, but it is a good phase, an example phase as to where we don't want to go back. And so, Alex, the question to you is, do you think that a new kind of thinking as it pertains to leadership needs to be rooted in these leaders, in these future leaders, so that it is now from the bottom up and not from the top come down? Your thoughts?
Oh yeah, man, of course. Well, after that is my kind of thing. I think we need to reset the nation's legislative agenda and administrative agenda as well, and jurisprudence as well. I think, as Thomas Baptist told me once, we should abandon the Constitution as is and create a new one, probably go into like a 6-month hiatus and rewrite the Constitution of Dominica to suit the spirit of the Dominican people. When Baptist told me that over 20 years ago, I didn't understand. And I was like, really? How can you do that? He said, yes, the Constitution we were given is what we were given. It does not really jive with who we are as a Dominican people. So we need to write a Constitution that suits the spirit of the Dominican people. So I think not just that, it goes back to the founding. Have we really been a nation founded on principles based on a nature island spirit? Not necessarily. And I suggested after Hurricane Maria, we should just do that, start afresh. But people who were into the status quo thing, they didn't listen. So not just should we start a new agenda in terms of the administration of our people, but we have to reset the clock on Dominica, so to speak. And yes, you're right that nothing lasts forever, and this system of power will fall and collapse, but the people who are replacing it might have a difficult task to lead if we do not do things now. We have to work proactively so that when the new set gets there, at least we have a blueprint to work with. So the architects of civility must design a plan, and we all should sign under that design and say that's where we need to go. You can't just wait until it falls and say, okay, we're here now. No, that's what you must do. It's going to be too late. We should already hit the ground running, because if the next Dominican government is not equipped to deal with the issues that Dominica has, I do not see that government lasting long in office after 25 years, maybe 30 years of this incumbent party. Any government that comes after without a proper plan that is deliberately set with strategy to take care of Dominica, at least in the first 10 years following the fall of that government, however it comes, that government will not succeed in Dominica as a successful leadership engine.
Yeah, and I think go ahead, Alex.
So plans must be done now, or should have been done prior to now, for that to be, for the transition to be as seamless and as stressless as possible.
Yeah, so what I was going to say is, Alex, I think that's an excellent point, and Lofty, that's a great question. But, you know, as someone who studies human behavior, attitudes, mentalities, I have to tell you, a new administration, a new way of doing things is going to be extremely difficult when what has been damaged the most in Dominica is the psyche of the people. So what we are witnessing now is that people's mentalities have changed, where you have people who are now reliant for their daily bread on an administration, who are no longer probably not willing to work because they've simply been handed an apartment, handed money, handed scholarships. So what we are underestimating is the damage to the psyche of the people. And I see an example very clearly in the Kalinago territory, where Honorable Kozia Frederick is trying to take a different approach to being the head of the Kalinago, being the minister for the Kalinago affairs. And instead of having folks calling him to say, hey, I need a cylinder of gas, can you get me a cylinder of gas? He wants people to help himself. And that is the information that's coming to me. I haven't spoken to him personally. That's the information coming to me. And he's having a very difficult time, to the point where people in the Kalinago territory are saying that they will not vote for him, because the psyche they have become accustomed to is that of getting handouts, is that of receiving materials. So now when someone comes in and say, hey, you have to work for this, people are going to push back. So I think the broader conversation we also have to have is, what can we do now to reverse the psyche of the people from a point where they go from being accustomed to begging to being accustomed to working, like all of us here grew up being accustomed to.
So we
Alex, let me be very direct here. Based on what Simon is saying, I don't see that mindset or that damaged psyche that Simon is talking about getting any better under this type of leadership. You, Alex, being in the political analysis, the political world as it were, would you recommend the change? I want to use a very mild change of that leadership today, so that what Simon is recommended, at least we can start there for change of leadership with the minds that are willing to make that change around in terms of the psyche.
I'm even afraid to say what I'm even afraid to recommend what I think is needed because boy, that could be problematic what I'm going to say or what I do not want to say. But Lofty, I think people must look at themselves in the mirror. Leaders should look at themselves in the mirror. Take a hard look. Like tonight, if every leader, every political leader, everybody who has been at this for a while, look at themselves in the mirror, they will be able to answer the questions that you just asked. I don't want to sound as if I'm the preacher of doom and gloom and I'm the troublemaker, and next thing tomorrow people are going to say, oh, Alex Bruno said on Civic Vibes, da, 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 da. I have to protect myself as well. And I may give you that counsel privately, but publicly here as a professional, I want to dance away from that issue just to say that I agree with Simone, that we cannot just cut off the dependency right away or change the mindset instantly. I think it's going to take at least a decade plus to try to help begin to sway individuals. I think we need a deliberate plan to try to change the political culture, this mentality of dependency, of medicancy. But we have to start now. So the hemorrhaging must stop by not cutting out the dependency, whatever, but trying to coax people out of it, educate them, say, look, I will help you, but here's what we can do in the long run. Instead of waiting to get that every 5 years, you can get that every 6 months. So I understand that. So you kind of purge people out of it. You ease them out of it instead of trying to tell them, Zorsot, this and that, get out of it, you know better. So we have to find a way, Lofty. There must be a way. And the way is possible. Simone is here, she's talking about it. It can happen. It is possible. It is very, 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 very possible, Lofty. Incumbent parties have lost election by landslides. It can happen. We just have to make it happen. But I cannot tell you now on air live now what we should do. When we speak in private, you, Simone, Paul, and I'll tell you, I'll give you some suggestions.
All right, point taken, my brother. Point taken. Point taken. Yes, let me just yield to Paula now, as we have to bring the conversation to our end just a bit.
Yeah, thank you very much, Alex, and thank you very much, Sim. I believe this thing about especially young people depending on a government for everything, like Simon said, government has to give you a house, you expect to get the money from them to pay the bills and all of this. I believe if people more depend on them own selves, knowing that they have an employment that gives them a very good salary, fair enough, that does not have to depend on the government, I believe things would change around. Because what we have seen for over maybe pretty close to about 20 years persons are more dependent on the government for everything. Whereas before other government has passed, we never saw this type of thing before. We know there's government that has assisted persons who have really been in need of. But what we've seen for the past 20 years is like persons are more dependent on the government than looking to have a way for themselves. So here again we go. It comes back to some persons who would expect for government to help them because they really cannot help themselves. We are not saying government should not or maybe cannot assist persons, but we are saying this kind of dependency where you have to go to the government for everything. It's kind of difficult to really break this from persons who depend on the government. And that's where we have to educate the young persons in particular, because a lot of them have gotten a very good education. And at the end of the day, they cannot find employment. So they have no other way. Instead of telling them about the kudme, that's where it comes back again. It's like they're expecting when they do something, they're looking for pay. So we have to educate the young persons in particular and see where we get out of this. So once again, thank you, Alex, and thank you, Simon. It was indeed a very great and interesting program here this afternoon. But as usual, you know, we have to come to a close. So thank you once again.
Thanks. It's a pleasure.
Well, guys, indeed. Thank you, Paula. Thank you for your comments here. We never ever end this program without some sort of call to action, because the talk that we talk, it is all healthy, it is a talk, but we always like to leave in the minds and hearts of our listeners and viewers some sort of action. And when I say action, I mean active action, not passive action. Active action that they all can be part of in order to make our talk a reality in their lives. Civic Vibes prides itself on being a program that is motivational by nature, educational by nature. It's a source of empowerment that we try to empower the citizenry and also be a source of inspiration to people, because we realize from the Civic Vibes end that is lacking in the market. So now is our take at that in terms of our closing comments. Let me start with Simon first as to, Simon, what would your call to action be to the persons listening right about now as to what they heard this afternoon? How would you help them translate that talk into action in their own little space?
Yeah, certainly. And before I do, Lofty, I want to thank you again for the invitation, Paula. It was great meeting you. Thank you for hosting us. Special thank you to everyone who joined us on Facebook. I see Carl Kofi and Indigenous Bushman with us as well as 119 people right now. I think at one point we were up to 140 something. So certainly this speaks to the quality of the work that you're doing, Lofty, in terms of engaging Dominica and trying to create that collective action, that kudme spirit that we were talking about. But I think we've already seen the process starting, Lofty, and I want to commend you as well, because I know that back when I was getting started with Untapped Potential, you were one of my guests. And I do remember that fondly, and I want to thank you for that. And one of the things that you mentioned that stayed with me was the fact that you were mentoring younger folks who were interested in becoming electricians in the way to go, in how to become an electrician. So that is an example of what we should be looking towards. We should be looking towards how do we mentor our younger people to help them to create financial opportunities for themselves. We should be looking at how do we embrace technology. We should be looking at what can each one of us do to move this cause along. And if we don't remember anything today, I want us to remember that we have to simply stop waiting for other people to come in and rescue us. That guy on the white horse, he's not coming. So we have to do the work for ourselves. We have to come together as a collective. And one of the ways that I'm doing so is with Push Past 10, where we promote and celebrate, our businesses, our people, our culture, because I see the value of doing so. So if we can expand that, right, to the 65,000 people in Dominica and the over 150 of us over 150,000 of us who are in the diaspora, imagine what we could do together. So my call for action today is, how do we come together? You can reach out to Civic Vibes. You can email me at pushpast10@gmail.com, pushpast10@gmail. And I want to thank everyone who continues to send ideas in terms of what we can do to move Dominica forward in a positive way. So again, Lofty, thank you for having me on the program. It was a pleasure sharing this space with you, Alex and Paula, and I look forward to continuing to see the important work that you will do for Dominica.
Dr. Simone, finally, I now call you Dr. Simone. Let me thank you very, very much on behalf of Paula and myself and the many, many folks who may want to thank you personally for that level of information that you dispensed this afternoon, that level, those motivating words, Life without hope, Simone, life is not hope. And so for sure, you really imparted that some kind of hope this afternoon. So someone may be going to bed tonight, I'm hearing your voice ringing in the ears as to giving them that source of encouragement to pull through another day, another week, another month. So we want to thank you very much and hope to see you back on this program very, very soon.
Yes, thank you, Lofty.
Thank you very much. My brother and community man, Alex Bruno.
Hey, man.
Your thoughts as we close?
Yeah, well, I'll make it very brief. Many Dominicans have given up. Many people that I've spoken to told me that's it. They close shop. That's not the attitude. That's not the spirit. So I'm asking people who have really given up on the country to think twice. Dominica is too much a gem, a bit of real estate to turn your back on. Now is not the time. For those who have gone inactive, continue the advocacy, continue speaking. And for that person who believes that you have a contribution to make, that contribution might be the spark which really catch us on this wonderful blaze, united blaze. Fire is a good cleanser. It's not always destructive. So just keep making the sparks. People are speaking, and let us allow those new sparks to catch. Sometimes when we see a new spark, we throw water on it. We say, oh, that spark looks like a red, green, blue spark. Let the spark blaze. You never know where it's going to go, because a lot of people are sparking, but we are putting out the spark in Dominica. So allow the new voices to come and embrace them. And you never know, a baby might be the person to help us get through but the promised land, to be our Moses. So that's my last words. Keep on talking. Speaking is one of the strongest advocacy that we can have. Some people say we talk too much, but I think we can still talk more. So let's keep on talking, and let's see where this one takes us. Lofty, I'm looking forward. I like Simone. I'm pumped. I'm excited. I'm not going to give up on Dominica. I am now more adamant to do something for my country than before, because I see where we are. As a professional, I see the danger signs ahead that maybe many people have not yet seen. And the majority normally see too late. Then we say, oh, how did we get here? Not knowing that for the past 10, 15, 20 years, the signs were all there, the writing was on the wall. I do not want to see Dominica fail, but we are very close to failed state if we do not do something like 10 years ago.
Alex, like I said to Simone, Paul, or myself, and the many folks on the live who want to thank you personally, let me use my voice to thank you on their behalf. We appreciate your contribution this afternoon. We always appreciate your constant contribution to country. You're some miles away, but like Simone, always make it a point of duty to give back to country. And so that is why I really cherish the friendship we have, cherish your educational sessions. Sometimes when you think I'm not in a live, I'm there, taking in the knowledge. So just let's keep it going. And you mentioned about sparks and fire, but not Martin Luther. Haile Selassie, there's a specific quote of his that I love so very much. It is dear to my heart. He said once, It only takes a spark, get a fire going. And so we are all sparking.
Yeah, man.
One day, that fire might just take a blaze of it for the
Yeah, man.
betterment for country, of course. Thank you, brother.
Blessed love. Be well.
Good. See you.
Yes, thank you. And of course, you know, Alex, we'll see you Sunday at 1. Me and Lofty are always locked in.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. I do my usual thing, you know. So, yeah,
Sunday
let's
at
do it,
1.
man. But what we
Yes.
really have to get all of us together at one,
Yes.
as one. You see, like what we did now, we should all the voices, you know, Maslin, everyone. We should try to find a forum. I see Adelaide Paul joined the live a while ago. I guess a session comes up next. But we have to find a way. We have to find a way to bring all those voices. Can you imagine a big choir of like voices, like-minded singing? I mean, people are going to shake and quiver. We just have to get the magic and get it done.
Indeed. Thank you, guys. Thank you very
Thanks.
much. Do enjoy what is
All right.
left of the evening.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone on Facebook.
All right.
All right, bye.
All right. So, Dominicans, here you had it. Two of our finest in the name of Alex Powell Bruno, and also Dr. Simon Matthew. That was our second leg from this afternoon. We're going to have a third leg in just a bit. The third leg is basically, again, no stranger to us. Miss Adelaide Paul, she's out there, and she wants to tell us something as well. But before we do, let us take a little musical break from a brother in terms of he epitomizing what we just said a while ago in terms of not giving up the fight. Let's do this one from Chronics. We are not giving up the fight now. Let's take a little from Chronics. Back with Miss Paul in just a bit.
Never leave my room. So even when get rocky, I said there ain't no giving in. Now when the going get tough, I said the tough get going. My people don't give up. I said there ain't no giving in. No, Rastafari guide. A lot of youths in life say them can't get depression. But from your trust in the most high life, I go get better with shows. The youth you go on the roadside, Babylon say fi take up your bag and wait. But you still not give up. Me say we solid as a rock like a luncheon. Not give up. I said there ain't no giving in. And when the going get tough, I said the tough gets going. One juggle your fruit. Don't give up. I said there ain't no giving in. Mama, Rastafari guide. Why don't we cannot get paid? The government need to purge and process. Police not get paid, so them find it hard to serve and protect. And all we get from the government is highlight bit and robust taxes. And them still a pressure the youth to run it hard on the road with them robot taxes. But there ain't no giving. But on your taxi, you, hey, I said the tough gets going. Ba, 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 yeah. Now give up. I said there ain't no giving in. No, Rastafari. I said my people, we been facing struggle so long. Job people, please hear me, please be down. System down and you feel pressed down like 50 feet. Just sweet something, just kiss me. I said there ain't no giving in. Hey, how when you go and get, I said the tough gets going. Jordan believe me. Now give up. I said there ain't no giving in.
All right. That's a powerful number from Man Chronics. The end's gonna give enough. Every time I play this number, I always have the young people in mind, the struggling young people in mind. And so, whatever you may be going through at this time, especially the young persons of Dominica, please know that you ain't giving up the fight, as it were. There will be much more prosperous day ahead. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for staying around with us. I know it's already after 6, but we have a final leg, about 15, 20 minutes thereabout. Very interesting information by one of our own as well, living out there. But she has some interesting information to know, or even more importantly, part of as well, those of you living outside of Dominica and can make it as well. We have now in our audience none other than Miss Adelaide Paul. Miss Adelaide Paul, greetings and welcome.
Thank you, Lofty. Thank you.
How are you doing out there?
I am good, thank you, Lofty. I'm keeping well.
That's good, that's good.
Gloomy day today, but we're alive.
Well, the smile on your face says it all. So you're keeping well, that's good.
I am keeping well, yes.
Miss Paul, you have something to tell the viewing and listening audience. We yield to you now in terms of giving you that platform so that you can right ahead and basically tell the listening audience why are you here this afternoon.
Absolutely. Pleasure. Thank you, Lofty, and good afternoon, or well, probably good evening actually, it's after 6. To Dominicans at home and Dominicans abroad, Dominicans in the diaspora like myself. Very good program we just listened to a while ago that was shared with us. And I listened to Lofty and Dr. Simone and Alex Bernot. And one of the things that I realized that was stressed so much in the program was the fact of, what can we do to change the mindset of Dominicans at home and maybe even abroad too, because I think many Dominicans abroad still, to a certain extent, believe in this whole ideology of just, having that system of dependency for their brothers and sisters at home. So I think we have a very long way to go. And you asked about a call to action. And there was no clearer call to action than we saw on Wednesday. I heard Alex speak about leadership. I heard Simone talk about leadership, and I heard you talk about leadership. And Paula, good night, Paula. And And leadership takes so many different forms. Leadership takes so many different forms. And we really don't know what it is that spark that's going to get people going. We heard of the apathy of many people who right now feel like, especially people in the diaspora who feel like fighting the fight is almost like a lost cause right now. And sometimes I have the conversations with many people who were on the front line in the past, and they're like, I don't know, I can't do this anymore. This is just too draining. I have other things to do. And so as Dominicans who probably have been given the opportunity to be out there and without that type of restriction and that burden, that thing that keeps us from growing, when I see people like Brother Afi and this lady from Salisbury standing up against all odds, standing up in the face of fear, in the face of victimization, in the face of frustration, in the face of apathy, that apathy I think we spoke of today, earlier today, Lofty. And they can call and they can mobilize people to stand up. I see no reason, and Afi being, as he said, legally blind, and a senior citizen at this point in his life where he could just sit back in his what he's worked hard for and just enjoy it and say, like many of us, to heck with everything, let them fight their battle. But he's decided to stand up and lead that work for prosperity, for justice, for peace. And so in the diaspora, when I saw it, I looked at it, I listened to it, I was really inspired also and say, well, if Athi as a senior citizen and legally blind can do it, and this lady who is 82 years old can be so vibrant and so powerful and be so encouraged, and what we saw on Wednesday was so encouraging, why can't we support? And so we're calling for a Dominican diaspora solidarity walk for the very same initiative that Athi set out for, which is for peace, justice, and prosperity. So we're going to be calling for that walk on Saturday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. in New York. We will be gathering at a park called the Ralph Bunche Park. It is on First Avenue and East 42nd Street. When we'll be walking, we'll be doing the very same thing. We'll be having a peaceful walk to the Dominican consulate. And we are asking everybody to dress in white, the same objectives as Athi set out. We're not reinventing the wheel. We just want to give support. We want to work with the Dominican people and for Dominica. And so that will be on Saturday from 11 to 1. We originally said 10, but we after having spoken to other diasporans who gave their suggestions, the patriots on the ground like Jeffers Joseph and Aura and Zed, Crispin Gregoire, Gabriel Christian, Adil Dangleben, and so many of the other patriots who've always been on the forefront. We decided, since people are going to be coming from out of state, why not accommodate them and come? Norman Chillingford, all these different people, come. I started at 11, so we're going to be doing 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. and we'll be gathering at the park.
So if I get you right, basically you guys are just replicating what is happening in Dominica and continue and promises to continue. You guys are doing it where you guys are as well in terms of a form of solidarity with what is happening back home.
Absolutely. And we think that, by having, doing it here in New York, where I think a lot of people on the eastern end of the US in the tri-state area, in Maryland, places, Boston, that you can drive down to join us. And we're encouraging all the diasporans throughout the diaspora, whether you're in Antigua, whether you're in St. Thomas, whether you're in Guadeloupe, wherever you are, if you want to, you should try to organize something very similar to give that support and solidarity for what is happening on the ground. One of the things that you stressed today so much in this program you had earlier today, Lofty, is unity. Unity of purpose, unity of people power. And the only way that you can get people power is through unity. And so if we do it together, if we replicate what was done, to give support, to let the people in Dominica know, you know what, we are out here and we support you too. We are willing to do the work the same way. I think that will help in just bringing the awareness of what is going on. Another thing that we're also going to do, in addition to the work, is we're getting a petition done. Gabriel Crispin has already done the write-up. Crispin has reviewed it for the diplomatic jargon, and Jefferson Joseph has edited it. And so we're going to put out that petition, and the petition is going to address three things. One, after the whole Syria debacle with Dominica, which we didn't know anything about, we in the diaspora, we're represented by the Dominican consulate. Lauren Banis Roberts is supposed to be our representative. And after having read that statement that the Prime Minister put out, clearly she is given until May 31st to resign. Something of that magnitude. Lofty, today, when I looked at the news, I saw Ukrainian civilians being picked up in the street. They were slaughtered, almost like a genocide, by Russian forces. And this is world politics. But when we align with a country that supports that kind of behavior, then we have an issue. And so we are calling for immediate resignation, immediate, not until May 31st, that is what the letter states. When she's decided, well, that is when I want to resign. We're calling for the immediate resignation of Ms. Lauren Banis, or if she doesn't resign immediately, be terminated immediately. Additionally, we're also calling for the resignation of the foreign minister, Daru, and the prime minister. And people may say, oh, well, they said they did not know what was happening in Syria. Well, guess what? If your representative continues to sign in all these diplomatic engagements with these countries, particularly Syria, and you claim that you had no knowledge of that, then it says something about your leadership style. It says that you are incompetent in managing the affairs of your country, and you're putting the citizens, every single Dominican, at risk for traveling privileges, getting these privileges taken away from us, because when you go to Europe or to England, where we have these privileges, that can be effective. And so, since all of these things are being done without the knowledge of the public, we are also in that petition calling for the resignation of Mr. Kenneth Darrow and the Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit. And I just want to add that we are the people. We are Dominica. We are Dominica. When you have an administration where anybody in that administration is so fearful of holding the people who are making decisions on behalf of every single Dominican to account, then there is a problem. And as Dominican citizens, we own Dominica, not the Prime Minister, not that way. We have a right. We have a right to demand that our affairs are governed in the right way. And we live in the United States of America. And I know that there are many diasporans who may say, oh, why are you saying that? I live in a state, the state of New York, where a very popular governor, one of the most popular governors when COVID was killing people like crazy, he was there standing up for the people. And he had to resign his position. And he resigned. His brother, who had a big position at CNN, resigned. And we see accountability in those areas. So we are calling as a citizen for that to happen. So this walk will take place next week, Saturday. And we are also going to get the petition out. And we're calling on every Dominican, wherever you are, to sign that petition. We are the people. We have the power. The country belongs to us. And if the ministers and the other people who are surround those in charge who make decisions on our behalf, if they don't want to hold them to account, then we, the people, have a right to hold them to account.
Yes, Adi, thank you for your thoughts on this one as well, in terms of giving us some more detailed information as to what is expected to go down in guys' neck of the woods as it pertains to your solidarity with what is happening back home. You mentioned, just before chiming, you mentioned about the Syria debacle that we saw unfolding on the world stage, where Lauren Barnes, I am saying now, had to take the fall.
Mm-hmm.
We are also monitoring, we are also digging into another debacle where word is getting back to us in Dominica, and we are doing some digging as we speak, that again, Roosevelt Skerrit is alleged, Adi, and the listening public, went to Morocco last week and signed some kind of document on behalf of the OECS member states. And I'm getting from the grapevines that some of these leaders are up in arms. They are very discontented at this time, as it is alleged again, Roosevelt Skerrit going on the world stage and signing documents, putting OECS in a very peculiar position that he did not get their authorization to do. Presently, what's his name? Dr. Keith Mitchell of Grenada is the chairman of that body. And he was not at that signing ceremony. No other leader was at that signing ceremony. It's only Roosevelt Skerrit, Dr. Darrow, his foreign minister, and the representatives of Morocco. So we are following that one as well closely, where we are hearing the chatter coming from these leaders in OECS that something went amiss. And so maybe next week or thereabout, we'll be hearing much more coming from this region as to possible actions that may be taken in that department. Paula.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Adele. I also want to extend this call to the President of Dominica, Mr. Charles Angelo Saver, and we are saying that he should intervene. I made the call last week, Tuesday, on the NJAMS program, asking that Mr. Daru should resign. And if Mr. Daru does not resign, we, the people of Dominica, because the power is in our hands, we, the people of Dominica, should force Mr. Daru to resign. Also, this afternoon, after listening to you, I want to extend that call to Charles Savre, and he should intervene, and we should ask for the resignation of Roosevelt Skerritt as well. Because here it goes, as a leader of a country, and you have a government who only you as the leader, the head of your government, only you can make that decision. There is a parliament. And why isn't parliament meeting and to have discussions? And only you can take this decision. And we are saying to Lauren Bannis, you need to come out and speak. You need to come out and speak and say exactly what has transpired. I know there's the call of many persons who are saying that Lauren would have never done something like this on her own. Okay, yes, we may agree with some persons, but we are saying to Lauren, you need to come out, speak out, you need to say exactly what happened. And on the other hand, like Lofty, you have said about, it is alleged that Roosevelt actually did some signing again here in Morocco sometime last week. And we are saying to the Caribbean leaders, where this is concerned, that you all as leaders should come out and speak as well. And we are saying, in the interest of Dominica and Dominicans, we are saying the Caribbean leaders, those of you who continue to remain silent, we are saying if you are not in support of what has transpired, as alleged to have transpired last week in Morocco, we are saying, we are calling on you and that you should come out and speak as well. So thank you, Ms. Paul. And we support you all, Paul, up there in the US. And come this Wednesday as well, Dominicans again will be doing their work here and will be all dressed again in white. So thank you for the support that you all are giving up there. Thank you.
Yes, Ali, go right ahead.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry about that. Yeah, our pleasure, as Paula, our pleasure, Lofty, and every other Dominican at home. Growing up as a child, my dad, and my mom, they said there was something that stuck with me so much, and it said that behavior is consistent. Behavior is consistent. Behavior is consistent. When I raised my son, I told him the very same thing. And as a teacher, I said the very same thing to my students on a regular basis. We see a consistent pattern of behavior, and it will never change. So anybody expecting things to get better or different, or governance to be different in Dominica, they're very much mistaken. What we've seen in the past with all these dodgy diplomats arrested, representing Dominica, signing of all kinds of diplomatic relations, all of these things, they will continue to happen. Here we just came from a Syria debacle. Now we're hearing of this OECS whole saga happening right now. And again, I say that, and I will repeat, if we do not hold the people who are supposed to govern us responsible for their actions, they will eventually hurt every single one of us. So if the Caribbean leaders prefer to stay silent when other islands are facing these kinds of problems and situations, and they don't speak out, guess what? It will come home to them too. Hence the reason when we see these things happening, we must speak up, and we must hold people accountable, and we must stand up. And Alex said earlier that there are many people who've stepped away, and he's calling on them to come back. Dr. King was arrested 26 times. 26 times, Lofty and Paula, 26 times. And even when he died, he still did not even see what he was fighting for. But guess what? I benefit from what he fought for. And I'm not even a born American. I'm a Dominican. My son benefits from what he fought for. Many of us in the diaspora, we're able to live certain lives and have certain opportunities because of what he fought for. So there have to be those who are willing and prepared to stand up and fight for those who are afraid to fight. And that is what I say. For every one person who comes out to the walk, that person may be representing 100 other people who are afraid. 1,000 other people who are scared of victimization, who is afraid of somebody seeing them and writing their names down to bring to whomever, so there will be more victimization. So when you are brave and you are courageous and you are willing to take the risk to stand up and speak out, will there be backlash? Yes, there will be backlash, but guess what? The reason that you're fighting, the cause that you're fighting for, will be strong enough so that when you stand for justice, it will allow peace to prevail, and then we can see prosperity. But without that fight, without that walk, without standing up, without stepping forward, it will never happen. And if we sit back, behavior is consistent. There will be more blows on Dominica out there by these guys who have no respect for the governance of our beautiful country, Dominica. No matter how much we say that, oh, Dominicans, I love my country. The only reason I'm doing this is because I love my country so much. The love for country and for people. And so we have to unite. We have to find ways. And I see a beautiful thing happening in Dominica now, where I see so much more unity. We may have different ideas. We may have different ideologies. We may have different ways of doing things or arriving there. But we have to come together under one purpose. That purpose of working for peace, justice, and prosperity, Lofty. And this is where I'll end for this afternoon. So don't forget to join us on Saturday from 11 a.m. to
just before you end, you said something that struck a chord a while ago. Do you know of anybody, Dominicans that live in overseas like you, that are fearful, that are intimidated, that are cowards in standing even overseas as to their rights and to the peace, the justice, the whatever we are calling for in Dominica? Do you know of scenarios in persons living out there that are still very fearful, long arm of that crucial regime?
You know, you're talking about Dominicans living in the diaspora who are afraid to show their faces because of the yes. Oh yes, absolutely, Lofty. And it is funny that sometimes I speak to certain people and they say, you know what, I'd come with you, you know, but if my waiting to get that scholarship, or my waiting to get that house or something, so it extends into the diaspora, believe it or not. Whereas, and here's the irony of it. If we stand here in America just for issues in America, we're not afraid to stand. We're not afraid to stand. The very same people will stand for issues here in America because we have no fear of retribution, victimization, or being called out, or just, being slandered here in America. But we are here in America and we can stand for American issues, yet some of us can't stand for Dominican issues living in America. That's just insane. And so we have to become courageous. We must become courageous. The only way things are accomplished and achieved is that you have to take a chance. You have to be courageous. And so we're calling on everybody, just, stand up. Maybe when you come out, somebody else will be encouraged to come out. Sorry. somebody else will be encouraged to come out. So we do have to encourage each other. But yes, Lofty, I have seen that. I have seen it right here in the diaspora.
Adelaide, well, I want to say on behalf of Paula and the many folks viewing, thank you very much for you guys out there standing in solidarity with what's happening back home. Again, I will try my very best. What about more publicity in terms of the media outlets? Are you guys reaching out to some of the internationally recognized outlets to kind of get your word out as well?
Yeah, well, I know that DNO will be carrying something on it. We're also going to do a few lives. We'll definitely try to reach out to even some media around here to try to see whether they can carry it, because the Syrian issue particularly is an international saga.
Yes,
that wasn't just a Dominican little thing in isolation. That made headline news around the world. So, clearly they have to know that, hey, we all as Dominicans didn't agree to this, we are very displeased about that. And somebody has to be accountable. Besides just Lauren taking the fall for it, we know that if our foreign mission is not accountable and not performing effectively, performing incompetently, they have to be held liable. And the way that they're held liable as a governing body, this is not a private corporation. This is a public. This is a public governing body. The people have to demand that there is some kind of consequence to the actions that we see time and again.
Yes, well, Adi, as Asa Banton said some time back, you have some people, who people, and I will try my very best, Adi, to those persons that I know out there in your area that is close to some media sources. I'll try my very best to alert them, that event on Saturday, you said?
Yes, Saturday.
Have them talk on you guys' behalf to see if much more coverage, international coverage, can be brought to bear on the event, the solidarity event that you guys are taking on, to shed some more light on the malgovernance that continues in the. So I pledge my support in that.
Thank you, Lofty.
I think the next
Okay. All right. So Adi, that's it for us. Thank you very much. Wish you guys all the success and all the log areas.
Thank you. We'll have a flyer out, by the way. We'll have a flyer out, guys. It's being worked on right now. The information will be on the NO. We'll be doing, I think we're going to have an ad on Q95. And so the word will be out. And each person spread the word out. Let everybody around know. A lot of people are calling. A lot of people are, you can contact me via Facebook. If you want to get more information, feel free, Adelaide Paul. Hey, just be there. It's a work for all of us. So just come. The address is there. First Avenue and East 42nd Street at Ralph Bunchy Park, right opposite the UN building.
All right, Adi, thank you very much. See you and much love.
Okay, bye everybody. Thank you, Lofty. Thank you, Paula. Stay well. Bye. Okay, bye.
All right, folks. That is it. You just heard Adelaide Paul. Some kind of representation, much needed representation, that is, for Dominicans living out there that want to participate and want to replicate what went on and continue, and has pledged to continue to go on in Dominica. So we want to thank Dominicans as well, consciences, so that we can part of what is happening as well. Folks, that is where we must bring down curtain on things here. It is 6 minutes to 7 o'clock. Thank you for your patience, but at the end of the information, we must agree that it is well dispensed this afternoon in the of our country. So sometimes if we have to make the extra sacrifice to stay on for half an hour or even an hour more sometimes, thank you very much for patience in that part as well. So before we do, before we close, that is, let's hand over to Paula so that she can find a leading words to us till next week, same time, same place.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lofty. Well, I want to say once again, thank you to all persons who stayed locked in first this afternoon. whatever social media you all will tune in by this afternoon. I want to say thank you, and hoping this week that we'll have a wonderful week. That everything will go well. I want to remind you of the walk on Wednesday morning from 10 o'clock, 10 to 12. We expecting to see more persons out there in the street. And as usual, we are calling for your contribution so that this program can continue. So whether it's by what the program, the information out there. So for those of you who want to contribute to the program so that this program can continue, give generously. And I want to say blessed evening to everyone till next Sunday. So all the best. Thank you, Rafi.
All right. All right, Paula, thank you very, very much for your words of encouragement, for your final words, as it were, parting words, as it were, and then to say your final words, because we know words in itself have power. So your parting words, thank you very much. I want to thank all our participants here as guests who showed up here as guests this afternoon. Thank Ms. Lambert, that is Dr. Binta Nesty. Thank her as well for her words here this afternoon that put it in a bin campaign, as it were. Also want to thank as well Mr. Alex Bruno and Dr. Simon Matthew. They too added value to the conversation we had here this afternoon. And finally, but by no least, we want to thank Adelaide Paul, who came in a while ago, basically gave us much needed updates as to what is expected to go down in New York come this Saturday. Read the replication that work for peace, prosperity, and justice. Dominicans, there is something afoot. We are hopeful that whatever has started continue in interest of us. Just on a last note before I leave here, those of you who wants to send some kind of financial contribution to that work, Atherton Martin and his team has basically given Civic Vibes the blessings to go ahead and give Civic Vibes Facebook, but not Facebook, sorry, PayPal information so that you can pledge your financial contributions to the work specifically that is going every Wednesday in Dominica. When you go to that PayPal page of Civic Vibes, there's an area there, there's a box there that you can basically define exactly, say exactly why you're contributing. So you can just put for the walk, after name, or whatever it is, or Dominica's walk, whatever it is. But please specify in that box below your contribution, that your financial contribution wanted to go directly to the walk. And then once you pull up that statement, then we will be giving across to our feed and his team exactly what you contributed. So those of you who wants to go directly to PayPal to do that, you can type in civicvibesda@gmail.com. Again, it is civicvibesda@gmail.com. If you go to that Civic Vibes site, then the PayPal account or link show up there, so you can make your contributions there. Those of you who want the link directly from Civic Vibes, please feel free to reach out to Paula, myself, Arthi, or any member of this team so that you can get that link directly so that you won't have to go through the website. All right. So that is it. That is in a nutshell what we have and had prepared for you guys this afternoon in terms of information. So we want to thank you very much, Dominicans, those of you at home listening, those of you abroad listening, and just appreciate your friends. We appreciate your everything that you do for and on behalf of the country. Dominicans, that is it. It's 1 minute to 7 o'clock. So I'm going to play you one more number as we make exit out this program. This number from Marcio Fontaine, basically speaking about crucial times that we are going through. Everything else, every crucial time has come to an end. All right. Thank you, Dominicans. Bye-bye.